After a fast and exciting round number 1 at Interlagos, the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup heads to Barcelona for round number 2 of the championship. But before we get those professionals out there on track, we will have our Porsche Heuer Esports All-Stars give us a show. I'm Connery Maddock, and I'm joined by Matt Trivett, Sadicist himself, for this portion of the broadcast. Well, Matt, we head to Barcelona, Catalonia, which is perhaps one of the most famous, if not the most famous, Spanish racetrack, having hosted many top-tier racing events in the real world. It should give us a good show here today.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say it definitely is the most famous Spanish circuit at this point in time. Lots of great venues in that country, but this one's the one where Formula One does its testing. Porsche's no stranger to it. WEC's been there, and they've had lots of Super Cup events. You've even had motorbikes, MotoGP there a lot of the time, Moto2, their whole shenanigans that they've got going on 2 wheels. But it is very much a staple in the circuit. Not least of which, because of its sort of fast-flowing corners, it's got some slow speed, it's got a little bit of everything. It gets a bad name sometimes for racing, but I think in a Porsche Cup car where aero is not the name of the game, it can be a great place to race.
It should well be, but we'll have a look at our schedule now. Of course, this will mirror the Porsche Heuer Esports Super Cup, but there's one small difference here in the All-Star Series, is that, well, for the first 3 rounds, we'll be taking part in with the 911 GT3 Cup car, but from round number 4 onwards, for a couple of rounds, we get the 718 Caymans, and then we finish off with the 911 RSR GTEs. And of course, with that finale at Monza, Matt, the car choice is, well, a complete unknown at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing to note as well is, and I'll be harping on a lot about it, is car setup. And that certainly applies to the Porsche Heuer Esports Super Cup when we get to the pro guys in our follow-up race to this. But for these guys, it's fixed, which is great because that means it's just straight driver. These guys aren't maybe as adept in setup, which is a big part of iRacing as our pro drivers are, nor maybe they have the time. But also switching cars means that we can get different driving styles. The Cup car's raw. It's probably the hardest of the 3 to drive. It's got quite a bit of power. The rear end likes to step around on it. Then you get into what I consider, even though it's a fast car in its own right, a momentum car in the Cayman GT4, and then of course the RSR, which will be glued to the road compared to the other 2. So very cool to see that. Obviously, there's some pretty cool parts about this racing too, Connery, which does include qualifying on a weird reverse grid.
Yeah, speaking of those elements, though, let's have a look at the format. Of course, these guys get themselves 10 minutes or 3 laps of lone qualifying, so it's the drivers all on their own out there on circuit for qualifying. No draft shenanigans going on with some of the other cars. It's just them versus the racetrack. Then the sprint race will be 17 minutes long. The feature race will extend that up to 22 minutes. So a little bit longer than last week, so we can fit in maybe a lap or 2 more of action here this week. But we'll have a look at the points right now as they stand here with Emily Jones, Emery, top of the standings there. That is only on countback because she won last week's event in the second race. Jardier is actually tied on points with her on 37. Matt Campbell, one of the Porsche Works drivers, not too far behind in 3rd place. So still absolutely nothing to separate these drivers at the moment at this early stage of the competition, Matt, especially when it comes to those top 2.
Absolutely, yeah, cool to see them tied. Jardier actually thought he kind of overachieved last week in Interlagos, so it'd be great to see him have a follow-up. Emery did win the second one. Matty Campbell was on pole and actually won the sprint race, but had a drama and I think a penalty or damage. I can't remember which it was. I think it was damage, actually. Took pits and kind of fell back on the points. But he's obviously going to be doing the Daytona 24-hour with FAF in 2 weeks' time, so it's less about the championship. He's going to be joined as well by Porsche teammate Richard Lietz this week, so we've got 2 pro drivers in. And it's worth noting, Connery, that it's kind of cool. It is a championship for these guys as well as the pros, but this is more about their community. That goes, the prize fund and the championship goes toward each respective driver's community should they win. So a bit of a different feel for it, and it certainly brings that community vibe all into play, which is exactly what we want in this race.
Yeah, that's the point of this series. It's not really too much about the competition and the head-to-heads out there on circuit. It's for the community. It's to promote these influencers and streamers as well. Speaking of, that's the one you're looking at right now. It's probably one of the most famous, if not the famous, in Spain. That's Heki out there at the moment on his qualifying outlap for the moment. So he's just trying to get those tires up to pressure, up to temperature before committing to his actual flying lap here. We've got an onboard with our Porsche Works driver as well, and it's not one Porsche Works driver, but 2 Porsche Works drivers in this race, as we have Richard Lietz taking part as well. But there's the camera to give you a little bit of insight into what Matt Campbell's doing behind the wheel.
Yeah, and he'll keep the 911 number that he ran last week. Obviously, the team car comes in as 912, so that'll be Richard Leist's. But Matty Campbell, like we said, had pole last week. He's pretty quick in sim for someone who's not a full-time sim driver. I know it seems weird. He's a pro driver in real life. You'd think it's natural. It's not that easy. Yes, he's quick. He's definitely putting down good lap times, and that is where you can see the real race driver come through. But it's just incredible how much the sim guys who put this in as their full-time jobs are still above this pace. But absolutely pretty impressive to jump in and be this I suppose comfortable in the sim. Leitz wasn't quite as quick in practice, so we'll see if he's looking as good. But yeah, Matty Campbell. I said it last week, the Australian kind of rose to prominence. He was a Super Cup winner, actually, in Australia, Carrera Cup winner, as they call it down there, in 2016. And then obviously he's won 2 Bathursts with Porsche. He's won Le Mans class win in 2018. He's been in a bunch of different cars, from RSRs to Cup cars to pretty much anything Porsche wants to race. I think he did the Dubai 24-hour at one point as well. So yeah, he's been everywhere in a Porsche.
Yeah, and that adaptability is going to be so worthwhile when it comes to trying things in sim as well, because, you know, he is a little out of his comfort zone. Both these Porsche Works drivers are a little out of their comfort zone. They're used to having all the G-forces, you know, having the seat of the pants feel, as we call it, in real-life racing. They don't really have any of that. They just have the force feedback through the wheel. And of course, in the case of some of them, triple screen setups as well.
And there's everyone's favorite shed dweller, Jimmy Broadbent. You're absolutely right. It is a very difficult thing to get used to for drivers who are so used to having, as Nicky Lauda said, a good butt, and feeling the rear end of the car, which Jimmy's lost apparently. Yeah, it doesn't have a rear end anymore. It's gone around to the front side. But it's super important to get that feel in a real car. In sim, you're kind of doing that with cues from the front axle through the wheel and visual cues. And Felix Rosenquist actually talked to me about this once. He said drivers who are very good at looking far ahead and anticipating with their eyes. Now, every driver should be looking ahead. Every driver should be using their eyes. But the ones who are very well trained and can translate that to sim tend to adapt better because they're able to anticipate what's going to happen rather than reacting to the car. So it's an interesting thing that sim has lots of different theories behind it.
Yeah, you always have to keep a couple of steps ahead of even the sim sometimes and the feedback you get. But there's Emily Jones, race winner for race number 2. Last time out at Interlagos, she heads her way across the line to set her provisional lap time here. Of course, these drivers do get themselves 3 flying laps here, so that's the situation here. Emily Jones doing a little bit of a slide, coming down in towards turn number 1, going to abandon that second lap, but she can take the tow back to pit lane and get back out there to set at least 1 more flying lap to finish off this session. But she's ahead in the early parts of qualifying at the one, but not by too much, because Campbell is less than half a tenth of a second behind her.
But this is an important one to note, because I was kind of peeking at the live timing for practice, and in practice, Matty Campbell did do a 9.5, so 149.5 to be clear on that. And Emery's just done a 49.7. She didn't actually break the 150s in practice, so that's her personal best. And if Matty can't replicate, this is actually a super good job from her as we're on board now with Maxime. She was in the mix and in the wars. There was a lot of battling and bruising going on, I think, in Interlagos, it was fair to say. But she certainly survived most of the carnage, and I think that was a big part of the aspect of that race, certainly in the reverse grid.
I think the reason why we're seeing some slightly faster lap times here in qualifying is that the track temp has come down just a tad from where it was at in qualifying, in practice, excuse me. Because it was around 38, 39 degrees Celsius in practice. Now it's down towards 36 degrees Celsius. So the track's cooled off a little bit, allows these cars to be a little bit better in terms of the grip out there as we continue to ride on board with Maxime as she heads her way down in towards turn number 10, which is going to be an overtaking chance during the race, shall we say. It's never a guarantee, and it requires you setting up for a good run out of the kink, but there's an opportunity there to have a look.
Yeah, it's certainly worth noting. Again, just like Interlagos, there's some elevation. It's not quite as undulating through that elevation here. It's kind of on a hillside. We'll take a look at that in a bit, but you're right. There's a few overtaking opportunities, and again, as always, tires come into play, and it's very easy to you know, and some of these, certainly the hard braking points, not so much turn 1 because you can flow the car into it. Certainly because you're not super hard on the power afterwards. You're trying to carry that through 2. But there's lots of places you can overdo it. And even coming into that last chicane onto this front straight, if you've got hot tires going in there and you overdo the braking even slightly, you don't get a good exit, you're going to be sitting duck into 1, like you say. And then at the top of the hill certainly is another place guys can make mistakes. Guys and girls, I should say, to be clear.
Yeah, absolutely. A good couple of representatives there from that side. You've got Gabriella out there, or Quick Gabby, as she's called on her stream. And she's heading her way through the first sector right now. There's been a couple of changes on the standings while we've just been talking here. Matt Campbell got himself back to provisional pole position with a fantastic 149.692 there. Jimmy Broadbent even set a time solidly mid-pack as well there in P7. So again, decent lap for Broadbent. But remember round number 1 at Interlagos, Matt. It didn't go too well for Jimmy, did it?
No, not at all. And unfortunately, in the second race, he was caught up. Made a good move down the inside. I want to say it was the inside of Gamer Muscle, and then, of course, Boosted Media. Will was having dramas. He did actually have force feedback, Will, issues last week. So very tricky car to drive on its own, and without force feedback, probably next to impossible. I think I would struggle hugely if that was the case, but unfortunately, Jimmy was kind of the victim, the knock-on effect of that. So got some pretty heavy damage. We did talk to him in the post-race interview, and he didn't sound too thrilled about it, but hey, he was having a good time, and maybe this week, although he did say he's not a Barcelona specialist, Jimmy, he did admit that in the interview, but maybe this week he can get a good points haul and correct last week's issues.
Yeah, looking a little better, just outside the 1 second mark compared to the fastest time so far. We've just run through the vast majority of this lap on board with Gabby. She heads her way through that tight and twisty final chicane before hammering the throttle through the final corner. You see the back end just sliding out a little bit, not entirely settled through there. I don't think many of these drivers are going to be entirely settled through there, being honest, but a 151 there for Gabby. She resides all the way down there in P10 at the moment. Lead's still struggling a little bit, 1.5 seconds off of your pole position time right now. Here's Rye heading his way through the final corner now and just drops it on the exit of the corner. So that's, a final flourish to qualifying for Rye, I suppose.
Yeah, I would say so. It's, again, these cars, I mean, if you want to compare it to what they'll be in a little bit later in the season, although we'll be at different circuits, the RSR, you're matted through that final corner. It's not too tricky at all. You're absolutely, wow, Dan Suzuki up well over the curb, I have to say, but makes it work. I'm not sure if you get a 1X in that spot or not. I don't think the inside gives you one. It's more the exit at the top of the hill, that AstroTurf you could just see going out of shot. That's the killer. But yeah, when you get to the RSR, that last corner is easy flat. You've got the rear diffuser. You've got a little bit more going on with canards in the front and a splitter that's a little more effective than what the Cup car has. Whereas in these cars, yeah, the power, you're going to be trying to balance either with your hands very delicately or with the right foot the whole way onto that front straight. And it's a make or break spot for that whole run to turn 1, as we said. But we saw what happens when it goes wrong with Rye.
Yeah, it does go wrong very quickly, especially in this car, because that rear-mounted engine, it's just going to swing you around like a pendulum. If you get a slide on, it's very, very tough to try and recover. As Dan Suzuki heads his way down on towards pit lane. That lap wouldn't have been valid anyway, since he's used up all 3 of his flying laps. Yeah, get more visitors on towards pit lane. So that is basically the end of qualifying at this point. I'm not really seeing anyone out there that can get to the end of the lap before the time expires. Maxime is out there. She has 4 seconds remaining, so unfortunately won't be able to get out of the final chicane in time. So our qualifying grid, is set for race number 1 here. Matt Campbell, fantastic pole position time for the Porsche Works driver. And of course, we got Emily Jones on that front row as well. Dan Suzuki and Jardier will make up row number 2. Heike and Tapilio will make up row number 3. Scrolling back, you got Jimmy Broadbent in row number 4, and Gamer Muscle also on that row as well. Cycling further back, you got Will Ford, you got Gabby, you got Richard Leitz, you got Cyanide on the outside of row number 6 as well, and then the very rear row of the grid, Rye and Maxi.
Yeah, absolutely. You see Leitz quite far back in the field. We'll see if his racecraft becomes part of it. That's where he might get the advantage to get some places back. But really cool to see Emery so close with Matt Campbell. 2 for 2 for him, by the way. 3 points for pole, so that's 6 points for him in this championship.
Yeah, so drivers very quickly actually taking themselves to the starting grid. I think we are just waiting for one more driver to get into their grid spot before we go racing here for what is the 3rd race in the entire season for this All-Star Series, but the 1st race here at Barcelona. So we're just going to have to wait just for a little bit longer to get things started. Of course, it's a decently long run down in towards turn number 1 on this first lap, so expect to see a lot of jostling for positions coming into that first sector. But it looks like everyone has just gotten themselves set here. And we go green flag racing here at Barcelona, Catalonia. Look at the launch, though, from Dan Suzuki. Fantastic start, goes from P3 to challenging for P1 in the space of this little bitty straight down towards turn number 1. Matt Campbell on the inside. Can he defend this position? He's going to struggle on the inside there as the advantage switches back and Dan Suzuki's ahead. And there's a lot of jostling down in the mid-pack as well. Heike and Gamer Muscle fighting side by side as they head their way through 3.
That was an incredible start, you have to say, from Dan Suzuki, but Matt Campbell got a ton of wheel spin. Not only does that mean he's a sitting duck, but also that those tires are going to be very hot as we see a car off in the background. I'm not quite sure who that was.
I think that was Heike, driver of the number 23 car, tangling with Gamer Muscle, and I think Gamer Muscle just had a little rear lock up there and actually went directly into the side of Heike, but there's still yet more fighting here on the live pictures. Emery and Jardier are fighting side by side. There's a little bit of contact between them as they head up towards turn 7. Jardier getting shoved out towards the outside. That was contact between your 2 championship leaders, Matt.
Yeah, and it looked like Jimmy Broadbent hopped up over the curb too, and there may have been contact further back as well through the S's. That's certainly not a place you want to have that happen. It's pretty high speed considering the amount of force you're putting through the car, but it's the run to 10, the second overtaking spot, or at least the big overtaking spot we talked about. And Emery, hot on the curb. Gabby making a massive run toward the front of the field. She had a horrible qualifying by based on what we saw in Interlagos, but it was these two that battled neck and neck in both races, and Gabby's not to be outdone this time around. What a drive through the field.
Yeah, brilliant stuff from Gabby so far. Looks to the inside on Emery coming up towards the chicane. That was an attempted move, but it wasn't successful as we're looking back to the race lead right now because Dan Suzuki has a big task ahead of him to try and keep Matt Campbell behind. Defends all the way to the inside towards that pit wall. Matt Campbell has a rudder speed here around the outside. He might be able to get about half a car length clear, if not the full car length clear, into the braking zone. But no, Dan Suzuki's able to come back at him on the inside. Fantastic dueling between these two, but Dan Suzuki, he's just got a nose in there still. He's not giving this one up.
This is the awkward one, though. Turn 3 is so long that you can hold the outside because it's more about power delivery than it is about line. Did we lose Matt Campbell? Okay, it was just imagery. All right, he's still there. He's still on track. I was a little worried. It looked like he actually was staring at the screen blankly, so I thought it was legitimate, but he gets the lead back, and well done. Very calm, collected, held it together, knew he had to make the most of getting a good run on the straightaway, and I have to give Dan Suzuki credit. He defended that well. He was fair. He didn't move too many times. He was a great, clean racer last week as well, so good spot for him to be in. The fact that Emery's fallen back and was under attack with this battle, which now goes all the way back to 6th, and I think a little bit of a nudge, is giving them some breathing room at the front. So Suzuki might be able to hold on, but Emery needs to make sure she can break free of this.
Yeah, if she slides back into this little pack here, then I don't think that is going to end well because there's a lot of aggressive looks here and there from these drivers, especially Jardier, as he had a little look on the inside of Gamer Muscle, and now looks to the inside again, coming through turn 10. There was a bit of a lock up there from Gamer Muscle. That's put him under threat now by Jardier, and he slides up in front of him, and Jardier tags him round. Presses the nose in the rear bumper, and Gamer Muscle parked on the exit there of turn 12.
And I get what Jardier was hoping for. A big lock up into turn 10. He's able to get the inside, but it means he holds for the outside of turn 12 and wanted to get the undercut as a result, but very smart actually to defend and try and hold the inside. It's the easy thing to do, and I think Jardier was kind of committed to the move before it was even really there. Good anticipation, but wrong execution, so that one's kind of on him, that punt.
Yeah, it really is. Front to rear contact, usually it's the driver at the rear that gets the blame for those sorts of situations. Let's have a look at the replay, though. You can see trying to capitalize on the opportunity, diving down the inside at turn 10, and then it also just slides up across the nose, and Johnny just didn't give him the space to do that. Well,
and you can see what Gamer Muscle was doing, right? His line and his original trajectory would have put him far enough out, but he lifted and held the apex and kind of parked the bus, which is totally fair to do. He's totally entitled to do that on the exit of the corner, and yeah, like I say, Jardier was kind of overcommitted to the idea.
Yep, he was. Here's Will Ford from Boosted Media trying to hold off Richard Leitz for P7 at the moment. Of course, Richard Leitz, one of the Porsche factory drivers taking part in this event. And he's gotten himself to a decent start. He started in P11, so towards the back of the grid. He now resides in P8. Of course, there have been a couple of spins and a couple of instances here and there that he's been able to pick up the positions in terms of the scraps out there on circuit, but he might even be able to get onto the back of Boosted Media here and be able to make a pass on merit.
It's interesting as well, too. Some of these guys, the real drivers, when they come over with not as much experience per se as, Matt Campbell's obviously done quite a bit, but there's a lot of guys that are very involved. They're able to adapt more in a race situation because they can kind of see what's going on in front, and they're able to be a bit more consistent. And that's why I say maybe in the race, that's where Leitz will come to his own. And of course, the reverse grid for the second race, if he can adapt and learn this whole time through, he'll be a force perhaps more toward the pointy end the next time around. I do love, by the way, that we have Whacker and Thacker together on the track in 11th and 12th. That's Rye and Cyanide. Hopefully they don't do too much whacking and thacking with each other, but 3 seconds between them. Cyanide, I have to say, was streaming Rust all week, and I think it shows that he's a little rusty on track and sim, because last week he wasn't super fast. His excuse then was he'd moved house and didn't have time to play, but now I don't know what excuses he has.
Well, I once had to do a broadcast setting my PC up on a coffee table because I'd moved in just that day. So there's no excuses as far as I'm concerned. I know racing drivers are fans of their outlandish excuses, but Cyanide isn't even a proper racing driver. He's just a streamer. Just a streamer.
If that. I mean, he streams, but is he a streamer? I mean, come on, Cyanide. Sometimes it's more about the dog than it is about him. I feel like that's why I watch, at least.
Yeah, perhaps. We are running on board right now with Dan Suzuki, who currently resides in P2 as he slowly but surely tries to work on that gap to Matt Campbell. I'm just wondering if he's been in any way successful over the last couple of laps. I wouldn't say so. I think he dropped a couple of tenths of a second on the last lap, so not exactly going well for Dan Suzuki when it comes to charging for the race lead, but a P2, still a good points haul.
It absolutely is, and that's kind of what you're looking for in a championship is points haul. If you're not the fastest guy, find a way to be consistent, and that's something that Emery's starting to find in this race. She's just on a 49.9, fastest lap of the race by 0.01 over Matt Campbell's last lap, which was a 49.7. But she's starting to pick away. Unfortunately, she was a bit slow to get into this race. She struggled. Gabby was all over her for the first lap, and that, I think, kind of put her on the back foot, but she might be able, with 9 minutes and 30 seconds left in this race, so about, 6 more laps if my math serves, maybe 5. Don't do math live, people, but there's a chance she could still catch up and challenge Dan Suzuki at the end, so he's going to have to stay pretty sharp throughout this race.
Yeah, she's making some good progress as well, and the closer she gets to the ball, that she can just sit in that slipstream and let Dan Suzuki pull her along the racetrack, because she gained about 1.5 tenths of a second that last time by, so I think Dan Suzuki, he has to be looking behind himself rather than ahead of himself right now, because Matt Campbell's just pulling away, setting fastest laps, and Emery's really bearing down on him.
Richard Leitz, meanwhile, continuing to try and track down Boosted Media. Will, who's just in front. Bit of a different line coming off 3. Yeah, Richard's the more traditional line all the way out over the curbs and then the run. You can get very aggressive and turn in early for turn 4, but here's a replay. Damage on that car, you have to say.
Yeah, it's pretty severe damage as well. This is Maxime. A little bit too much out of that curb on the inside of the kink, which is turn number 9. And just spat the car out, and like we said in the pre-show, the car doesn't really want to come back around once you get it in the slide because of that rear-mounted engine, so it's really more luck by anything if you save a car.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously the wing is efficient. Those wings, they aren't there for no reason. Anyone who... This is actually a good battle. I'll come back to my thought because this could be an undercut attempt. The tights turn to the left of 10. Gabby holds her nerve, holds her line, nose in. Good fairness between the two of them. Wow, I have to say Gabby gave room because that could have been brutal. The bounce off the curb, but well held as, I think that, that was Jardier getting by. So he's looking to make more points this week, but Gabby's not done. She's going to attack back on this. You watch. The run onto the front straight. If she gets a better line and a better exit, she can draft this all the way down.
Yeah, absolutely. That should be the plan from this point forward. So you get a lot of overspeed, shall we say, heading down in towards turn number 1. If you can nail the exit out of the final corner and utilize that slipstream all the way down into the braking zone, but I get the feeling she's just a little bit too far back at this point to be able to make anything happen into this first portion of the racetrack. Shows the nose slightly coming down into the corner, but nothing that will really scare Jardier. What Gabby has to do now is just be big in Jardier's mirrors and cause him to make a mistake.
Yeah, back to the point. I once had a debate with someone when I was younger. You know, wings on race cars, and unless it's an open wheel car and super high speed, they don't do much. You know, even some of the lower formulas, they're not that effective. Well, if you think that's the case, drive down the highway, stick your hand out the window, and do that little trick where you move your hand up and down, and the air pushes it. Think about that with the wing that size. Yeah. So yeah, they still do have some aero effects. Certainly, it helps squat the rear and give them a bit more grip in the corners. But it's not like it's a high aero car. There's no full floor diffuser that's sucking air and pulling the car down in that regard. And there's certainly not a lot going on in the front with the Porsche Cup cars. They're a bit more raw. But yeah, that's why you see that rear end kind of when it goes and breaks away with all that grip. It does continue to push around as we've got a battle for two important positions on the track, 4th and 2nd right now.
Yeah, both major points-paying positions as well. Stan Suzuki coming under a lot of pressure right now from Emery, and similarly so when you talk about Jardier having to go up against Gabby on the bottom of the screen there as well. So two little duos that we're going to be watching for the final 6 minutes of this race. And Emery is just going to bide her time for the moment. She actually gets a much better line there coming through the chicane and is able to get the power down pretty efficiently as well. So this might just be a chance for Emery to be able to make a pass happen coming down in towards turn number 1. And Gabby's pretty close to Jardier in that same situation as well. So we might even see 2 pass attempts on the same straight. Emery's getting close, forces Dan Suzuki to go to the inside and try and defend that one. How late on the brake is Emery around the outside? Very, very late, perhaps a little bit too late as Dan Suzuki's able to come back and retake the position.
Yeah, she tried super hard. I think she just locked the rears a little bit too much speed on entry. Managed to hold it, but she's still on the attack. She still has a chance here because it put Dan a little bit offline, obviously, in this run to 3. Like I say, it's a long corner, but now it should stabilize. She caught him very quickly. I thought it would be closer to the end of the race when she was on the back for this battle, but she's been catching at about a rate of half a second a lap, give or take. So she definitely wants 2nd place back. She'll be a little bit annoyed, perhaps, even that she didn't get Matt Campbell or get a chance at Matt Campbell in this race, considering how close they were in qualifying. And it was Suzuki that had the amazing start, but just holding on at this point. Battle for 4th behind that we showed you as well is still pretty intense at this point in time, but they're very back and forth in terms of lap times. It's more about less mistakes, I think, in that battle.
Yeah, the consistency is, well, you desire more of it when it comes to those mid-pack battles, shall we say. But Emery, again, having another little look around the outside, but again, has to back off with it, going for the cutback attempt instead, coming off the corner, but not quite able to gain enough speed. You saw Dan go basically towards the middle of the track there, coming up towards the hairpin, not really wanting to give Emery a chance to have a look either way. And you can just see that he's starting to feel a little bit concerned because he knows how fast Emery is in clear air.
It's gone wide.
He knows he has to pull out the defensive effort, and you pointed it out, he went wide.
Yeah, that compromises the run. She's a lot closer this time on the front straight, so definitely should have a fair move this time into turn 1, but give Dan Suzuki credit. Aside from that miss, he's been pretty perfect. In fact, I haven't seen him lock anything in terms of braking so far, so he's very focused, and that's a big part, especially in sim where you don't have all that feel. The mental focus is such a huge aspect of sim racing, and he seems pretty on it. In fact, I'm impressed that he actually managed to hold that. There wasn't much of a move at all, so obviously his drive through the final corner, turn 16, was better than it was expected to be, considering he kind of lost a bit in the chicane.
Yeah, absolutely. So just one chance going a-begging, perhaps, there for Emery. It would have been an optimistic chance, though. It would have required a bit of a dive coming in towards turn number 1 that time, so you can understand the reluctance to go for the move. But speaking of moves, having a look back in the pack for the battle for 7th, this is involving Richard Leeds, Boosted Media, Will from Boosted Media, and Heike as well, all scrapping in and amongst themselves. Heike on the back of Will, then coming down into the left-hander, looks to the inside. Is the door going to be shut? It's left ajar by the number 4, so Heike can really gain some speed off the corner here. He has the inside for the first part of the S's section up the hill, and Will give him the space. He didn't really want to challenge that.
But keep in mind as well, not only is well, 2 of these cars coming back through the field. Not only is Heike battling back from going off first lap, fourth corner, I should say. Oh, Leeds might have a problem. That might be a slowdown. I think that's a slowdown. He's got offline because he had to, because I think he clipped a lot of the curve on the S's. And the result of this is what I was going to say. You have 2 drivers coming back through, because remember as well that Gamer Muscle was tapped into a spin by Jardier, and otherwise he would be battling for 4th. So Richard Leeds made positions, I'm going to say, contact that time. And although it was the same corner for Gamer Muscle, that time I don't think he left enough room. Caught a lot of curb on the left, and that didn't really leave Richard Lees anywhere to go. And again, there'll be more drama between them.
Yeah, they're going to have to try and sort this one out, aren't they? You know, there's going to be a situation after the race, you know, maybe a bit of fisticuffs. We don't promote that, of course not. But 2 minutes left to go in this race, and well, we finally had a little bit of carnage there down in the mid-pack. I guess it's better to have it now than at the very start, like Interlagos. But, you know, just a very short amount of time left in this race now. And Emery, well, it's do or die at this moment now for her. She's actually lost a little bit of time to Dan over the last lap or so it isn't as close and not as able to apply as much pressure as she was previously able to, and it gives Dan a little bit more breathing room, which can make all the difference. Yeah, and inching closer and closer, the pressure starts to be on Emery rather than just on Dan Suzuki, because it's running out of time as we look at the Vodafone replay. It's going to be on board with Richard Lees, so this will give us an idea. This was post-contact with Gamer Muscle, and oh yeah, unfortunately Will spins in front of him, similar to the Jimmy Broadbent incident, but that time it wasn't so much that he put the anchors on and stopped in front. He really had nowhere to go, and Richard just couldn't react in time, so unfortunate contact. But as I say, he's been improving throughout this race. His lap time's continuing to come down a little bit, so maybe in the reverse grid he could take advantage of the higher start position, whereas we'll see if Matt Campbell, who right now with a 5-second lead as we come into the final lap, could win back-to-back sprint races. He was caught in the wars in the reverse grid, so maybe he'll have learned something and could be something for him. But Emery might start 2 places ahead, or is she going to be beside him on the grid? Oh, it's a bit tight there coming through the chicane, but it's all about the exit coming out of that section. You can follow as close as you want, nose to tail perhaps, coming through those apexes, but if you don't get a good enough launch as the car behind, you can have no chance when it comes to making this pass coming down into turn number 1. So we are on the final lap then. And a couple of battles to look at. Battle for second, battle for fourth, all still on. Gabby closing in on Jardier, so she made up a little bit of time here. Angles towards the inside, actually going to commit to the move here. Jardier will give her the room here, surprisingly. And Gabby has a decent chance of making this pass happen now coming through the first sector. But again, turn 3 is so long that you have to balance the car, and it means you can kind of control it, collect it, and get on the power. It's very hard to perform an undercut coming through such a long corner, and that means position hell. But Gabby, I'm not sure what happened to her in qualifying, because she was well down the order. She's looked good in this race, and it's a good sign, again, that she's on pace, because she was excellent at Interlagos. This is a big move, shows the nose, but doesn't overcommit. But that's what showing the nose does. The pressure, and Jardier locks up as a result of just having to defend, and now Gabby has a run. Yeah, Gabby has the inside now for turn 7. The first apex of these S's up the hill as Jardier comes back out there, tries to get to the outside, coming up towards the kink now, around the outside of such a high-speed right-hander. Gabby has the inside and has the advantage, and she's clear just about, coming onto the exit curve. Oh no! Jardier sends Gabby into the wall, a huge wreck at the end of this race. Absolutely crazy stuff, and I gotta say, Jardier might be a little bit naughty there, as we'll get ourselves a look at your eventual race winner. As long as he can negotiate the final corner just fine, Matt Campbell will come across the line here to win race number 1 at Barcelona. Dan Suzuki will hold on just about to second place over Emily Jones. What a fantastic battle between the two of them. But Matt, we gotta talk about Gabby there. Stylish, I just want to point out for Matt across the line. This isn't done. Gabby with so much damage is just trying to hold on for whatever points she can get. I mentioned it was a good drive, but then it's all gone backwards. Tire rubbing everywhere on the bodywork. In fact, I think she's going to lose one more spot, as well as Boosted Media sneaks by, maybe even 2 toward the line. Is she even going to hold on to that? No, not quite. So to go back to the move, look, as a driver, I'm not going to blame Jardier for that. I'm sticking the nose in there. Now, when they went into the move, it's tough to hold on the outside of that S. He did very well, and Gabby gave him good space on the outside to do so. I probably would have backed and tried to get a better run to maybe make a move into 10. But once he's there, she has to respect it. And when they're both out on the AstroTurf, I think she needed to give him a little bit more room to rejoin, even though, yes, he was on the grass. Didn't really have anywhere to go, and the contact was inevitable at that point. So kind of a racing incident, but I might look at Gabby and maybe give a bit more room. Yeah, possibly. Here's your official race results. From heat number 1, then Matt Campbell wins by 6.3 seconds over Dan Suzuki. Emily Jones just a couple of tenths of a second behind, comes across the line to score a podium here in race 1. You've got Depilio, P4. Solid drive for him. We didn't talk much about him. He was just silently doing his thing. Jardier, of course, involved in that final lap incident with Gabby, comes home in P5. Heike, P6. Leeds, P7. Will Ford from Boosted Media, P8. Quick Gabby, P9. And Rye in P10 here today. And then you had a couple of the other drivers further down the field. Game of Muscle, Cyanide, Jimmy Broadbent, Maxime will all actually benefit from the reverse grid here. It's the full reverse grid here in the All-Star Series, and not the top 8 or the top 6 that you're used to seeing in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup. So I guess it's a good opportunity for the likes of Jimmy to be able to show what he's made of, because that's 3 races in a row now that he's had horrible luck.
Yeah, horrible luck. And Gabby, who had a poor start position this time, worked her way through, is now going to start near the front again because of the drama at the end. So maybe she's another one to watch. But the driver of the race for me, look, Matt Campbell's proven he's super fast. He's a super fast guy in real life as well. And so is Richard Leitz, to that matter. I mean, he's won his class at Le Mans 3 times, Richard. But I have to go with Dan Suzuki. The guy didn't really make, aside from missing an apex once in the chicane, which he recovered from and held his own down the front straight, he didn't put a wheel wrong. And under pressure in a car like the Porsche Cup in iRacing, it's very easy to walk a brake when you are getting sort of presented noses, as Emery was doing a number of times, and putting him under pressure. He was perfect.
Yeah, and it seems like that sort of consistency is really key here for this race, because, you know, Barcelona Catalonia has this little bit of a reputation of not being a great track for overtaking. There are many reasons for that, but if you make a mistake here, it is very easy for someone to just look to the inside at really any of these corners and try and force you to make a defensive line. You lose speed, you lose momentum, you get out of the groove, and all of a sudden you're having to deal with cars going side by side with you. So that might be a bit of a difference compared to when comparing this All-Star event to the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup a little bit later on. But still, the racing that we did see was absolutely fantastic. Maybe that last lap notwithstanding, but
again, that's also one of the things you've got to look at. It was the last lap. If that was mid-race, early in the race, I would have said, hey, just lift, give her the spot, get back in, and go again. But it was the last lap, and it's a battle for 4th place. So you got to give some understanding to Jardier there. If I was in his position, anyone who knows me as, hey, look, I put a car out on the second corner of a 3-hour race this year. So I'm aggressive. I go for moves I probably shouldn't. I'm not backing out of that. If I've got an overlap and I've been put out on the grass, I'm keeping the boot in it, because if I'm on the grass, you'd expect she's going to give a bit of room to rejoin. And unfortunately, I think she was a bit too defensive at that point, and it led to inevitable contact.
Yeah, I called Jardier a bit naughty at the time, but I've gone back and had a look at it. It does seem like Gabby just came across just a little bit more, gave the squeeze a little bit, and kind of forced that incident. So it is what it is at the end. Gabby, even though she loses those points from the first race, she'll get a better starting point here for the second race, like you mentioned just a couple of moments ago. So she could well be a front runner for the second race. Yeah,
and it's a perfect thing to do in a championship, the All-Star battle that we're having to do this, because it means that guys like Matty Campbell, who were dominant in that race, can't just run away. They've got to work for it this time. So it's kind of an equalizer, but it also is good for people like Gabby, who were quick, kind of got taken out of it and fell down the order. Now they get a chance for redemption with kind of a head start, if that makes sense. It's not a head start, but you know what I mean. A better start position. So it's perfect for this situation. I wouldn't want to see it, obviously, in the Porsche Esports, the PESC series coming up in just a sec with the pro drivers, but the top 8, again, it's kind of the same thing as long as you've earned that spot.
Yeah, it really is. So we are just about a minute away from getting our grid set for race number 2 of the Porsche Heuer Esports All-Star event. Matt Campbell will be starting from the very back of the starting grid here today, Matt. And for a driver of his caliber, it's all about the overtaking now from this point forwards. It's about the overtaking and the crash avoidance, shall we say. Those are the 2 main things for Matt. And,
just to touch on that quickly, sorry, Interlagos, that was the problem. He had the speed, but got caught up in a to be fair, no fault of his own, second corner incident caused damage, and then I think he had to go to the pits, and I think he was down something like 3 laps at one point in that race as a result. So maybe he's learned from that. I mean, yes, it wasn't his fault, but that's kind of what you have to expect in a reverse grid, certainly in a battle like this where we've got influencers. So he might just maybe sit back. Maybe he'll be a little more cautious about the space he leaves at the start. We'll see if he learned.
Yeah, of course. And he has to be thinking about his start as well, because it was a relatively poor start from the front of the field. Got a little bit of wheel spin. It wasn't the worst start in the field by far is Dan Suzuki got an amazing launch off the line and was able to challenge. But ignoring that, we'll go to our starting grid here for race number 2 of the Porsche Heuer Esports All-Star event. And it will be Maxime starting on pole position here for this second race. And Jimmy Broadbent will line up on the front row next to her. We've got Cyanide and Gamer Muscle comprising of row number 2. Rye and Quick Gabby will line up on row number 3. And then you've got Will Ford from Boosted Media, P7. Richard Leeds from P8. Heike starts in 9th. Jardier 10th. DePilio in 11th. Emery in P12. Dan Suzuki and Matt Campbell will be your final row on the starting grid here today. So drivers taking themselves to the starting grid then, and the red lights are about to show. They will extinguish and get this race started in just a couple of moments. Here we go, race 2 for the All-Star Series gets underway at Barcelona, Catalonia. Maxime has gotten a very good start from the front of the field, able to get clear of Jimmy Broadbent, who's being challenged right now by Cyanide. But here comes Gabby now down the inside of Cyanide, able to rob P2 away. Side by side for the race lead, and Jimmy Broadbent to the pointy end of the field gets past Maxime, but there's been an incident further back in the field. That is Will Ford from Boosted Media out in the pity litter.
Yeah, and nearly again collecting the Porsche factory drivers is both Richard Leeds and Matt Campbell, who, by the way, had an excellent start, managed to sneak by. So far it's been clean for Matt trying to work back through the field. We'll see if Richard can get in board with his Porsche teammate and maybe make a move, but Jimmy Broadbent leads the way. You said it, chance for redemption with this reverse grid. I don't think Gabby's gonna let him off the hook easy.
No, I don't think so. Look at all this jostling, though, for position further back. Rye and Maxime. Maxime's falling down the field quite quickly here from that reverse grid pole position. Gamer Muscle's now stuck behind her. And you've also got the side-by-side further back between Cyanide and Jardier as well. But that's the front end of the field there as Jimmy Broadbent heads his way through down towards that hairpin. Gabby trying to lock onto the back of him, showing the nose down towards the inside. I think that's Gabby trying to get inside the head of Jimmy there.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I think there's a lot going on inside of the head of Jimmy sometimes. So I don't know, maybe more distractions won't do anything. But he's certainly going to be sweating for it up front this time. No one in front of him to cause problems. He just needs to keep it focused, keep it forward. And like I say, Gabby's got quick pace. So watch this first time onto the front straight as we look through a beautiful shot of the cars and the Porsches shining through the chicane. All there except for Will Ford, who obviously went off and is a little bit further back, but Richard Leeds tagging onto the back of it. There we go. Here's the battle. You can see it up front. The draft is on.
Yeah, big old draft train here in this mid-pack area. Maxime in P5 trying to hold on to that top 5 finish, but Dan Suzuki angles towards her inside and goes late on the brakes into turn 1, able to get that pass complete. And able to get himself through. Maybe Heike can capitalize on this as well, and he has. There's the look back to the front of the field, though, as Jimmy Broadbent tries to fend off Gabby. And this is going to have to be a mega defensive drive here from the man in the shed.
Yeah, absolutely. Bought a house this year. Congrats to him on that. I hope he still has a shed in the garden, though, because it would just be a part of history lost, if not an homage to the original. Yeah, absolutely.
That's a big guarantee. Yeah, you know those, in America where they, because the houses are built in such a way where you can just pick them up and put them on the back of a truck and move them.
Not all the houses,
just
to be
move
fair,
the whole
but
shed.
yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if it's built on a slab or whatever, you're right. He could do that with the shed, absolutely. Just maybe even use a flatbed that he would maybe tow the race car with, the Miata or whatever. I think he was doing an Opel Cup this year. He was supposed to be doing a car at VLN, but it didn't transpire. Gabby's on the move now. This is the run to 10. Nose in. Jimmy's still far enough ahead, and I think that's his corner, so Gabby does well to get out of it. Jimmy runs a little wide. I think he opened up a bit as well so that contact didn't happen, but fair play. They're both going to continue. That'll give Jimmy an X, but an X is fine if you're in the lead.
That's what we call an optimistic move from Gabby there. I don't think she was really going to ever make that corner when push came to shove, and it almost came to shove there, as Jimmy was well aware of it. He actually took, like you said, a little bit of a wider angle through the apex, so there wasn't any contact made. But I think if he took the normal line there would have been contact.
Yeah, absolutely. So they get away with it, and that's fine. And that's the awareness both drivers need to have in those situations. But yeah, Gabby's super aggressive. Meanwhile, Behind them, we're seeing a bit of action as Gamer Muscle this time still near the front end of the field. Rye is there as well, and they're going to try and make up for lost ground in the first race because both of them had their own respective incidents. So far, just to give you an idea, Matty Campbell has made it up to 6th place. Emery sits in 9th. So all of them trying to battle back through the field. Jardier is in that mix as well. And Heike, who had dramas, a bit of a recovery late, but he's going to try and hold on to that pack this time.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll have to keep track of those drivers that finished well in that race number 1 as they try to work their way back through the field. And, well, they've made some good progress already because Matt Campbell's up to P6 and Suzuki up to P5 as well. So they've made some good progress, yeah, but they can't afford to really get stuck in this situation. Otherwise, Gabby and Jimmy will be able to pull the gap on them. Coming towards the middle portion of this race, this gap for P1, P2 has stretched out just a little bit here. Gabby has to be careful about looking for these aggressive moves because it's super easy to burn up the tires here, especially with the increased race distance.
Yeah, it's something we'll talk about a lot more when we do get into the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup race coming up just after this, because there's been a lot more tire deg this week in terms of some of the reports I'm hearing. Paul mentioned that Josh Thompson was saying there's actually more despite the lower temperatures than there was at Interlagos, and that obviously has to do with some of the layout and speeds and different demands the car is put under around this Circuit de Catalunya. So something to keep in mind, absolutely, even though again it's fixed setup for these guys, the tires definitely are still a factor. And man, oh man, I don't think I'm tired of watching these battles. How many do we have? We got one for the lead, we've got one for 7th, we've got one for 6th, 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd. I mean, everyone's at it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, no matter where you look out there on circuit, there are cars all clustered close together. There's a look to the inside from Dan on Gamer Muscle coming in towards turn 1, but he's just going to have to back out of that move right now. It's so difficult when you're in these the rear end of these slipstream change because you know, the car ahead of you that you're trying to pass is also getting slipstream from the car ahead of you, so you're not going to have as much overspeed coming into the braking zone as you would otherwise. So everything just kind of gets stalled out here. Again, it's just Dan looking to the insides all the time over Gamer Muscle, but Gamer Muscle's covering everything off at the moment.
But here's something to watch. Matt Campbell was the only one who actually passed Dan Suzuki so far in a race. He got him back on, well, I guess lap 2 technically, but the end of lap 1 in the first race. Dan's got a bit of a problem here because Matt is a very good racer. This is where the real-life racecraft will come through. And Dan's struggling right now to make the position onto Gamer Muscle. And with each of that, with kind of that going on and having to look both directions, Matt's going to be able to capitalize. This is the last guy I would want behind me right now in this situation. And look at this. He's already all over him. And now as Dan has to defend, he can't make a move to go further up. That is a nice switchback from Matty Campbell, but wise to stay out of it. Knows he can't. Knows he's already put him on the back foot as Dan has to go deep and nearly gets into the back of Gamer Muscle, who is hard on the binders himself. But this is exactly what Matt's going to do. He knows he doesn't have to do much. He's not the one under pressure. He can just force this battle in front of him and capitalize on the mistakes.
Yeah, Gamer Muscle had a decently long lockup there coming through the hairpin. That really... Oh, Dan, look at this dive to the inside of the final chicane. It's going to be adoring coming through those apexes. And here comes Matt Campbell on the inside of Dan. Gets the position done coming through the final corner. He'll have the slipstream from Gamer Muscle as well, but I think Dan can come back at him from this situation. You've got Heike waiting in the wings, looking to try and get himself involved in this battle as well to try and gain a couple of positions. So we can see 3 wide into turn 1, surely not, but we are, just for a brief moment, 3 wide into turn 1. Matt Campbell still trying to defend on that inside line, and Dan somehow keep himself ahead and slide up across the nose. Well, I'm a fan. Racecraft.
I'm a fan. Dan Suzuki, what a guy. That's a great drive. I mean, sure, he made a move. Again, he knows he's under pressure from Matt Campbell. He wants to stay ahead of him, so every car he can put between them in this run through the reverse grid is massive. So he goes for a very ambitious move in the chicane. Credit to both. They left room. Gamer Muscle saw him coming, and then he lost the run. Matt Campbell was able to deny him the apex in turn 16 because he had the door wide open, but still he gets a great run, holds his own. Campbell gets a little bit too much curve in turn 1, and he's back in front. I mean, that's not easy to do to a guy like Matt Campbell. So very well done from Dan Suzuki, who continues to, I guess, Tony Hawk style that sausage curve up and through the S's.
Yeah, he's really trying to take some liberties with the track limits, I suppose, in this one. Matt Campbell got a very good run there through the kink, and well, Dan Suzuki, ooh, again, he's just these looks here and there, and it does scare Gamer Muscle wide. He's late on the brakes again. That's the 2nd lap in a row where Gamer Muscle's locked the brakes into the hairpin, and this time it costs him.
And fantastic battle, though. Emery's on the back end of this train as well, just sitting and biding her time, because you never know when drama is going to unfold in battles like this. Gamer Muscle wide again. You got to start to wonder if tire's a factor. Maybe it's partly mental. Bit of damage on the bonnet, which indicates he's been in the wars somewhere already. A bit of contact involved. And Matt Campbell might get the run down to turn 1. He's going to want to get it done soon, because again, Dan Suzuki's got a car between them. And yes, 12 minutes left. This will stabilize, you'd expect at some point, but God knows right now. It's a bit of a gap that he can use as a buffer. Yeah, Matt's going to take all the draft possible, gets deep into the braking point, and now it's side by side. But if Gamer Muscle, he actually denies him the apex, stays ahead on the braking. Well done to go so late. I was going to say if he can hold the outside of 1, he'll get it back in 2, but doesn't even need to go that far.
Gamer Muscle is a bit of a, look at this as the duality of a man right now, because he had those errors coming into the hairpin, which are, sloppy mistakes, and then he pulls off that fantastic cover off to the Matt Campbell. Yeah, we'll just have to see how this one develops, but we're running on board with your race leader at the moment. The rear view cam all the way back to P2. That's Gabby, who currently tries to lock onto the rear bumper of Jimmy Broadbent. Jimmy's managed this race actually quite well at the front of the field, managed the gap, just keeping it around about that half a second, but he has to remain in the situation now for another 11.5 minutes, and that's going to be very, very tough. And his lap times are great. His last lap, 50.9. Okay, he's under pressure a bit, but his best in this race is a 50.1. Remember, qualifying, the pole was a 9.6, so he's not that far off the outright pace, let alone race pace, and everyone right now is racing in the 50s. This is as close as what we'd expect to see with our pro drivers a little later on. That corner is costing Gamer Muscle a lot. Each time into turn 10, I think that's 3 or 4 lockups, and again, tires become a factor when you start to do that in iRacing. He's going to be really struggling for grip. 11 minutes left as well. Yeah, you'd expect Jardier is going to be hot to make a move in the next few laps, maybe even this one into turn 1. But yeah, Jimmy's holding his own. Great battle up front. Gabby's just waiting for her chance to get by, but what a popular one it would be if, I don't want to say it, do I jinx it? I'm not. I'll let you finish that sentence. Oh, look at this. Battle for P3, though. I'll just completely ignore that, Matt. But the other Matt Campbell, going down driver's right-hand side of the pit straight there. It's Dan versus Matt then on the way in towards turn number 1. Matt Campbell, the Porsche Works driver, trying to get this position done. This is a repeat of the battle that we saw in race number 1. Look at the speed on the outside from Campbell as he now has to dive to the inside. This very long right-hander, and he's got the grip to be able to get it done. Suzuki wasn't able to carry that momentum around the outside, but he's going to come back at him then. Coming up towards turn number 4, still a chance in this one for Dan, but it's going to be a big struggle on the outside here. He needs to have at least a slight overlap to be able to go to the inside of the next corner. But look at this, battle for the race lead. I think Gabby's had a look. Gabby has, but Jimmy holds. 0-0, but wants to be the hero. Bit of a lock in the S's. Does he get enough run? Because this could lead to turn 10. It's super tough as we go directly on the visor right now with Gabby, who, I have to say, lost a little bit more, about 2 car lengths through that right-hander, and that's just enough. I think Jimmy holds this, but what a battle again. She's going to show the nose just to maybe put some pressure on, but so far that's not worked. Little wiggle from Jimmy, but no tire smoke. That's the main thing. This is great all the way through the field. Yeah. This is fantastic. I mean, Campbell has now made the move stick on Dan Suzuki, but Rye, this time without dramas, is holding his own, and that's going to be another battle for Matt Campbell. Emery is sitting in 7th. She really was hoping, I think, for more drama to make a move and to capitalize on space. Yeah, and I think if you're Jimmy or Gabby at the moment, you're having to hope that Rye holds up Matt Campbell, because he is by far the fastest driver out there, and if he gets some clear air, it's not too, you can see them on the camera there down the pit straight. It's not too far in terms of distance to those top 2 cars. So if Matt Campbell can get this pass done quickly, he might even have a chance of getting some of those higher spots on the podium. And look at this, down towards the inside at turn 1. He's made this pass happen before. It requires to the inside of turn 3 to get done, but here comes Rye trying to cover it off. Just leaves him the space, and now this is where Matt Campbell can get it done on the inside of turn 4. But Rye, they almost come together, and I think they did contact. I think the rear steps. Word. Yeah, Matty Campbell's trying desperately. He carried a lot through the outside of 2 in the last 2 laps. He's realized that you can defend that, so he needs to be more aggressive, but just put too much effort into the tires through turn 3, lost the rear, and I think slapped Rye offline a little bit. He's lucky not to lose the spot to Dan Suzuki as a result of it. Rye rejoins, but behind Jardier, so lost 2 spots as a result of that. Yeah, he has. So not exactly ideal there for Rai. He's still involved in this battle pack though, so he's definitely don't count him out of things. But he also has Emery behind him as well, who's looking for a handful more points than what she's getting right now to continue on her championship challenge, shall we say. She's currently losing points to Jardier at the moment. Jardier's another couple of cars further down the road, and Rai has just gone very, very wide indeed, coming through that turn 10 hairpin. So Emery, well, there's a couple of free points.
You gotta say, I mean, the opening act for, okay, hang on. Every time I want to go into a side thought, we've got a battle. Gabby again showing the nose outside this time, carrying a bit more speed and momentum, but Jimmy again is just very composed. He's holding his line. He's got it pretty straight onto the straightaway, so good power down, and I think enough of a break in the draft that, yeah, okay, she might close a little bit, but he should hold position. So, yeah, if you're the opening act for a band or some sort of entertainment, you're trying to warm the crowd up, and it's the same thing. In fact, I would argue that the Super Cup is better racing than F1 in Montreal some years, although last year Roman DeAngelis just crushed everyone because that's how good he is. But this is perfect. This is exactly what they're doing. This is exactly the kind of racing I want to watch. I don't care about the outright lap times. This is phenomenal all the way through, and you can expect the same when we do get into the PESC drive a little bit later on with the pro drivers. Remember, there's 40 cars on that grid, so you don't want to miss that. Gabby's trying everything. Still 6 minutes and 30 seconds left, but a little bit wider. Wants a straighter exit this time, and I bet she's going to show. No, Jimmy goes defensive. This might be enough to start to put him off the line, start to inch away that momentum, and now she might be close enough if she can hold it through the S's to make a move.
Yeah, so she's steadily reeling Jimmy in, but you get to a point where you're kind of stuck about a tenth, 2/10 of a second behind, and that's the point where you really need to try and make the pass. But if you can't, that's the point where you start being concerned about Matt Campbell coming in from behind, because he gained about 6/10 of a second on this lap already. So it's going to be basically no time before Matt Campbell gets himself involved in this battle, and he might be towing Dan and Jardier along for the ride as well. So it might be an entire train in terms of a battle for the race leaders.
Yeah.
Look at this one, down towards the inside, Heike over Rai.
Well, we'll see. You're right, this is a battle bit further back. These guys are not far off it, though, and you're right, they could all join into it, but we'll see if this lights a fire under Gabby, because Matt Campbell is closing, and she'll have wanted to be clear of Jimmy. I think she's got the pace, but Jimmy's got just enough in the right spots to hold on to it, and if she was clear and gone, maybe Jimmy does well enough to hold up Matt Campbell. We'll have to find out. He could go back-to-back here, Matt. That would be impressive, because, again, it fell apart at Interlagos, but it would be 3 from 4 if he's able to pick off the win this time. Still a long way to go and 2 cars to get by.
Yeah, we've got about, well, coming up to 5 minutes to go. Showing of the nose again from Gabby coming into turn 1. But, you know, there comes a point where that showing of the nose becomes less and less effective if the driver ahead of you just kind of knows you're a little bit too far back to go for the dive, which Gabby was, let's be honest, coming down towards turn 1. So, it becomes less effective.
It's the boy who cried wolf. Yeah, it's the boy who cried wolf. If you do it every single lap, and I know you're not any closer. I mean, if you're right in my mirror and you do it, okay, I'm going to think twice. But yeah, you're right. If you do it every single lap, and I know that's your game, screw it. I'm not going to pay attention to you.
Yeah, look at this side-by-side battle between Rai and Depilio. So Depilio, he's, like I said, at the end of the race number 1, he's been a bit quiet so far this event, but now he gets to show what he's made of with this door-to-door action coming up through turn 5. And turn 6 is imminent now, as these guys still absolutely neck and neck coming to that uphill section. But Depilio, he gets 2 tires into the grass, and that is basically death in terms of iRacing there. So he spins out into the healer and gets a hard lesson of, well, keep it on the grey stuff, please.
Now we're seeing a lot more from Gabby again into turn 10, and this time she's unsettled Jimmy. So what we said was the boy who cried wolf suddenly works, because Jimmy gets offline, loses it a little bit where he's been so composed before. Gabby into the lead. So Jimmy now has to either get hard back on it if he thinks he has a chance at it, but also be aware that Matt Campbell has closed yet more. He's only, I think, what, a half second back at this point in time of the battle? And, well, I don't think you need a time to tell you the visuals. They're all there. In fact, Dan Suzuki's closed as a result of what's going on at the front as well. Emery's still on Jardier. This could be a 6-car battle toward the end.
Yeah, so Gabby, fantastic pass to get into the race lead with such little time remaining. Now you have to run for the hills and hope and pray that Jimmy's going to put up a mega defense up against Campbell and delay him somewhat. But Jimmy's actually keeping himself in this. He had a very, very good turn 1 there and is able to get a bit of a run. Here comes Matt Campbell as well. at least looking towards the outside. We've got a replay coming up of that pass for the race lead. You can see the live pictures in the bottom right as well while we run this one through. So it was slightly defensive from Jimmy coming in through the left there, and then just overcommitted in the middle of the corner, locked up the brakes a little bit, and Gabby able to get to the inside and get that pass complete. Totally just though, my word, they were close.
Yeah, nearly a little bit of a love tap on the rear bumper after she went by. But yeah, maybe we were just what we said, you know, we're not being too distracted by it. You're right, Jimmy went a little defensive, maybe caught a glimpse of her a little bit late, got hard on the brakes, and a slight lockup, and that's all it takes. That's all it takes in this car. It's so delicate, such a driver's car in that way, and yeah, sneak by Gabby into the lead, but again, this is not done. Anything could happen. If Jimmy gets aggressive, he can still be back on her. Matt Campbell's right there, and Dan Suzuki, who I'm going to start calling Mr. Racecraft, is just watching it all unfold in front of him.
Yeah, that's the situation right now. It is a big old 4-car train for the race lead right now. Dan Suzuki, like you said, he's bided his time. He's just worked his way through and let Matt Campbell basically tow him up to this position as well. But it looks like once we get this final sector done, this will be the start of the final lap. Lap times are around about 1 minute 50. We have 1 minute 45 to go as they head their way through the final chicane. So this will be the start of the final lap then. Race 2 of the All-Stars events here at Barcelona. Gabby P1, Broadbent P2, Campbell P3, but well, that can all shuffle by the time the checkered flag drops here at Catalonia. Are there going to be any moves coming down towards turn number 1? The answer is going to be no. There's a lot of distraction work going on with looks and flashing of the lights, but no positions being changed as Jimmy's all over the back of Gabby.
Yeah, he's on the get out of the way button, Matt Campbell. It doesn't do as much even in iRacing as it does in real life with the digital mirrors. It's just hard to spot, but try anything at this point. You're on the last lap. You got 2 cars to make. He's going super wide on the AstroTurf. Goes late enough. Knows that he doesn't have the apex, so he commits to a wide move. Wants to try an undercut, but contact as Jimmy wasn't on the power as much as Matty would have hoped, and now Dan Suzuki's back into it, and Matt has to hold his line to stay not only defensive, but just get the car as deep into the corner as he possibly can. All of this gives Gabby a slight bit of breathing room that might just carry her to the flag.
Is that the breathing room that she needs, though? It's all been gobbled up once again by Jimmy as Gabby, maybe the tires are starting to fail on this final lap, not going as quickly as she was previous, and now Jimmy has the win in his sights here. Matt Campbell's looking for a win. Let's get these final 2 positions done on the last lap. Oh, side by side for the race lead, but Jimmy spun towards the outside of turn 10. He's absolutely bottled it, and now it's the battle between Gabby and Matt Campbell. Gabby's able to hold on here, coming through turn 12, but it's that chicane to go and that run through the final corner that might decide this one. Matt Campbell has a massive chance to take the second race win here, to go 2 for 2 at Barcelona, but it's simply not going to happen for him. Gabby will head her way in the final corner to win race 2 at Barcelona in this Porsche Heuer Esports All-Stars event. Fantastic, brilliant action in the final lap.
Wow, and Jimmy Broadbent, oh, you feel heartbroken for him, but Matt Campbell, that was Bathurst 2018 or 17 or every year he's at Bathurst all over again. Final corners, and he's just hard on it. A slight lockup into 10. He's switched, kind of sold Jimmy the dummy, and when he locked, I think Jimmy just panicked a bit as well, got too hard on the brakes, and around came the back end, but that was phenomenal to watch. That was awesome, and well done to Gabby. Holds her own. We said she had a poor qualifying. First race looked great. There was a very intense battle on the last lap of the first race, and she got taken out in it, but that's a win, and that was well earned. She sat back, bought her time, and made the move on Jimmy when she needed to, so well done to her. This is a look back at it. How intense was this?
This was incredible. I mean, this was fantastic action here, and so you can see Jimmy, he had the speed. I get the feeling that Gabby maybe overcommitted a little bit too much while she was trying to get that pass over Jimmy and just cooked the tires and didn't have anything left to try and defend, which is why Jimmy was able to come back at her. But you need to keep it on the grey stuff, Jimmer, and look at this late move to the outside. He knows he's being pressured from behind by Campbell as well, but he just locks the rears just slightly and sends the car around.
And even watching that replay there, the brake lights were on all the way in, so he wants to trail brake, but he's gone so deep, he just doesn't have the speed off. So it's not so much that he couldn't keep and sustain the braking if they had more space to the corner, but too much pressure for the trail braking, and that's when the rear end comes around. So yeah, you gotta be very careful in these cars how you modulate the brake pedal in. It's one of the hardest things in real life and in iRacing to do. And yeah, you're right, just way too deep on that occasion.
Yeah, so here are your unofficial race results for race number 2 of the Porsche Attack Heuer Esports All-Stars event at Barcelona. Gabby wins by 3.5 tenths of a second over the Porsche Works driver of Matt Campbell. Remember, Matt, he started at the very tail end of the grid, so a P1 in the race 1, P2 in race 2. Not a bad job at the office at all there for Matt Campbell. Dan Suzuki in P3 as well.
Well, and I'll add to that, just the 3 points for pole position as well. So great points haul for Matt Campbell.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll just have to list things down. You got Jardier in P4, Emery P5, Jimmy falls to P6 there. After what could have been a race win, let's be honest, there for Jimmy. He's going to be pretty disappointed about that. Xavier Sanchez, Heike P7, Gamer Muscle P8, Bry in P9, and Richard Leitz in P10 here today. And of course, you have Cyanide, Depilio, Boosted Media, and Maxime being the drivers that we're at the very tail end of the finishing order here today. So without further ado, though, we will head on over in just a couple of moments to our Bo's post-race show, as we'll have to wait to get our interviewees in as well to have a little bit of a chat. So here we go, Bo's post-race show, and well, Matt, you're going to have our race winner.
Yeah, absolutely. Who obviously is none other than very quick, Gabby. But it wasn't that way in qualifying. Gabby, you had to do the work twice.
I don't know. I made so many mistakes. In the first lap, I spun, and I think I just overheated my tires, and then I wasn't possible to make any good lap time in the qualifying. So yeah, that was the reason why I was starting so from the back.
It's interesting with the reverse grid because you made your way through the field very well. You were catching the front pack last lap of the first race. Your perspective, what do you think happened there? Yardier's kind of 2 wheels on the grass, tough battle. Hard to say. I think there was just no space, and he was driving on the grass. So I was scared it will happen something like that, and it happened. But this sometimes happen also in real racing. So I'm just happy to win the second race because also in the round 1 get quite a lot of crashes. So really happy to finally make it. Yeah, and your pace was there. You and Emery had a great battle at Interlagos, but this time it's Jimmy Broadbent you had to go against. He was giving you a bit of a hard time. You kept trying to sell the nose, but finally he did make a mistake and you could capitalize.
Actually, I was trying to overtake him like in the first laps, but then I saw that he has quite a good pace. So I was like, okay, don't overtake him. Like, let's go with him, make a gap for the second pack that they don't catch us, and let's fight like in the last couple laps. And that's what I did. And and I think it was a good idea to do that like that.
Yeah, very smart racecraft. Was it a little bit scary with Matt Campbell closing in at the end?
Excuse me?
Was it a little bit worrying with Matt Campbell kind of closing in toward the end?
Yeah, of course. Like, he's one of the fastest on the track. So I was like, when I saw him in the mirror, like, okay, just focus, go your own race. And that's what I did. No mistakes. And that was actually the key to win.
Well, very well done. Congratulations. Great job this week. Quick Gabby comes out with the win, but our driver who came from the back, took pole position, won the sprint race, and actually goes onto the podium this week twice. Matt Campbell. Matt, you had a phenomenal start again, just like you did in Interlagos, but this time you were able to stay out of the drama for the reverse grid.
Yeah, only just. There was a couple of close moments there, which made it pretty exciting. But made it through. It was a lot of fun to join again for the second week in a row. And obviously a great race, lots of close racing. And, it was a lot of fun to obviously join all the streamers and influencers. You impressed with some of the racing out there? Because there was some, I think, really good battles where there was respect given, a lot of wheel to wheel. You had to work for that, for sure. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it wasn't easy. Obviously, coming from the back, you have to pick your battles sometimes. But I must admit, the racing, it was extremely close, but very fair at times as well. So it's great to see. And I think the couple of us that came through from the back, some really good battles. And it was just about minimalizing mistakes, really. Shades of Bathurst at the end there. I could see you just seeing the win. You were going for it. Speaking of that, and speaking of real racing, you're off, I believe, next week, Roar before the 24, and then, of course,
course, the Daytona 24-hour, you're joining a Canadian team, which is good for me to see. I'll be cheering for you guys and for Faf. But how's 2021 shaping up, and what's your focus there?
Yeah, look, it's it's obviously all starting to pick up now, getting really exciting, and really promising programs as well. So obviously coming off the back of 2020, a mixed year. Hopefully we can settle back into more of a normal sort of routine now with racing and everything like that. But really excited to get stuck back in racing in most of the same championships that it was last year, with the same teams and stuff like that. So good consistency, and I think we're in a really good position to fight for championships again like we did last year.
Well, best of luck in Daytona. It'll be awesome to watch. Thanks for joining us these 2 weeks, as well as Richard Least. And show these guys what to do in qualifying, certainly. So thanks very much, Matty, and best of luck at Daytona.
Yeah, thank you very much. Have a good one.
Well, there you go, Connery. I think I would argue for the All-Star race, at least, that was better than Interlagos. The battles were I think everyone was a little more on it. I think Interlagos, they came into it, they're ready for it, but you kind of throw the cat amongst the pigeons. And then second week around, people want to redeem themselves and make up for the mistakes. I think everyone looked pretty sharp this week.
Yeah, I think so as well. It was a little bit of getting your sights set, I think, Interlagos. There were a couple of very rookie errors. I wouldn't say they've been completely eliminated in this situation, but a lot of the drivers out there seemed much, much more comfortable with the car, and it just resulted in amazing racing, which sets us up quite well for that for next 2 weeks actually, as we have a week break here. But that is going to be the end of the Porsche Esports Tag Heuer All-Stars event. But don't go away, because we have the professionals getting themselves out there on track in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup. Is coming up after this.
CJ, box this lap.
Not right now, boys. Come on, baby. Go for it. Go for it. Go.
Hey, CJ, you wanna come back in? CJ, are you there?
I'm staying out. Get you in, boys.
CJ, come on back in, buddy.
Risco.
What is he doing?
Go. I'm gonna stay in the car. Don't get up. Here I go.
Hey guys. How about some gas for the car? And I'm gonna get some coffee.
everyone, and welcome to the second round of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup powered by iRacing. This is the countdown brought to you by Tag Heuer. The qualifying session here starts at Barcelona in just over 15 minutes time. My name is Connery Maddock and I'll be your host for this evening. Paul Smith and Matt Trivett will join me just a little bit later on, but before we bring them in, let's take a look at what happened at Interlagos last week.
We are back at Interlagos. 2021 is here, and well, we're in for an incredible season.
The green flag is in the air, and away we go.
The control is VRS into VRS.
Big incident there.
Not what you want. In fact, that's Guven that just got pinballed around.
Daniel Lafuente is looking to make some moves there. Williams down the inside. Oh, locking up an inside wheel.
Rogers is not getting away. Teammate Warren is strictly in his mirrors, and again, it's not a team championship, so no one's safe. He could absolutely go for this. So Sanchez is wide here. Backham is able to get it slowed up.
And it almost seems as if Matt Backham has worked his tyres too hard. Rogers who takes the victory here in the sprint race across the line. It's the first victory race of the 2021 Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing. See how Rogers gets the cut back there. Tries to clip the curb.
Sanchez and Rogers, that's second and third in last year's championship, and they can't afford to make those mistakes.
Here comes De Jong, looking to the inside of four. Ellis Jr. side by side. You've got to be careful here, folks. Kevin Ellis Jr. He's got himself an 0.8 of a second lead. He needs to do everything he can. He needs the lap of his life here to hang on to victory here in this feature race. But never say never in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup. This is the final lap. They've just got to make it across the line. Kevin Ellis Jr. is going to take victory here in the feature race, but who is going to finish in second place? It's neck and neck across the line, and who does it? It's going to be Binnaker in second place. A fantastic drive from Max. My goodness, what a drive and what a race.
Phenomenal drive all the way through. Everyone of those guys at the front can be proud of that.
Tremendous racing from Interlagos. Don't forget, next week it is Barcelona.
As you saw, we had some fantastic action at Interlagos with 2019 champion Joshua Rogers taking the sprint race win, with Kevin Ellis Jr. taking his first career win in the feature. And here's how the point standings, turned out at the end of round number one. Kevin Ellis Jr. leads Mitchell de Jong by 4 points, with Martin Krunke in P3, Max Bernecker in P4. And Paul, of course, you called Kevin's first feature race win, first win in any World Championship Series here on iRacing to the line. That was an incredible performance for him, and coming into race two, he's going to be firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, his first ever feature race win in this series. Of course, got a sprint race win at Watkins Glen back in 2019. But he was absolutely delighted with that. I think we could tell that by the pictures. But what a performance it's been. It's been a slow, gradual improvement since the first year of this championship for Kevin. And really, he carried the momentum of last year and he's brought that into this year. He seems to be really focused on trying to get the championship, a real challenge for the championship this year. So definitely he's got the opportunity, and he's got that first win here of the season. So it's a good start, but there's still 9 rounds left in this one.
Yep, there is still a lot of time for these storylines to develop, still a lot of time for other drivers to come back to the forefront here, and Kevin Ellis Jr. doing a fantastic job early on. As you can see, the drivers that had won the first feature race of the year, Paul, actually went on to win the championship. So we've had that happen 2 years running since the very inception of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup. Will history repeat itself?
Yeah, as you mentioned in our production meeting, it's a very small sample size, but it has come true so far in the first 2 years of this championship. So, Sebastian Job, Joshua Rogers, both getting those opening feature race wins in their respective championship years. It bodes well for Kevin going forward here today.
It really does. Let's take a look at where we are here for this day's action. We head to Spain. We head to a circuit, the Barcelona, Catalonia, as we get a good aerial view of the most famous Spanish circuit. I think it's probably fair to say. Of course, 4.65 kilometers long, 16 turns, opened in 1991. It's got a little bit of a reputation of being a bit difficult to overtake here, but that might be a little bit different in these cars due to the draft. We've labeled some points of interest. Those are going to be your main overtaking points on this circuit. Getting a good run out of the final corner in towards turn number 1. And also you can capitalize on any opportunities coming into the turn 10 hairpin as well, especially if someone makes an error through the kink just that corner before. So despite there being a lack of overtaking opportunities here, there's still a chances on the circuit for you to get yourself by. But I want to talk about something here, Paul. I want to talk about Max Bernecker, who, in my view, has always been the bridesmaid, but never the bride. Of course, he has done well in terms of team events in iRacing World Championships on previous occasions. But when it comes to these solo events, he's always there, but thereabouts. But the thing is, here at Barcelona, he got the double race win last season. He can repeat that performance here today, and he'll have launched his championship hopes off to a very, very good start.
Yeah, he had an amazing run here last time, got both the sprint race and feature race wins here at this venue. So he's somebody who knows how to win around here. Keep yourself out of trouble and work your way through the field. And Max, he's got a good opportunity, had a good run through the field last week as well at Interlagos to work his way through. So we know that he can overtake, and we know that he does very well here as well.
Yeah, he really does. And, well, he needs that consistency throughout the season to be able to challenge the likes. Well, do a repeat of perhaps of what Sebastian Job did earlier on in the season last year. But let's have a look at the schedule. We are in the very early stages of this one. Barcelona is going to be next up. We've also got Imola for 2 weeks' time. Then we head to Silverstone, Road Atlanta for the middle of the season. And then we have the run of Montreal, Spa, Nürburgring, Le Mans, and that grand finale at Monza, just like 2020.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant venues that we're going. A truly global championship, this, and really shows the different styles of tracks that we go to this season. Certainly, one that I'm looking forward to is Road Atlanta, and that is going to be a tremendous one. But we're here at Barcelona. This is where we're going to really see who comes out on top.
Yes, it is, and it's going to be particularly tricky in terms of the handling of those cars towards the end of these races as well, because we saw at Interlagos, the high track temperatures were really wreaking havoc with the rubber, and the drivers were feeling such a massive loss of grip coming towards the end of those races. Maybe the track temp is going to be a little bit cooler here today. It's saying about 31 degrees Celsius, but just due to the nature of the track with some very high speed and very long radius corners, that's going to murder the tires as well. So it's going to have the same result in terms of tire wear. It's just in two different methods compared to Interlagos.
Yeah, this is more about actual tyre wear and overheating of tyres through the nature of the course. A few of the drivers saying that it is actually a little bit tougher on tyres for that point of view. So sprint race, we're not going to see as much, but in the feature race, you're really going to see drivers planning things out and thinking about looking after those tyres. But of course, inverted grid in the feature race this year, one of those changes this season.
Yeah, and of course, I'm just having a quick peek, just a little peek at the practice times right now, because Maximilian Bernecker is going very, very quickly out there indeed. So this seems to be a very, very comfortable track for the German, but we'll have to see if history repeats itself as far as his double race win last year. Can it carry on into this year? Sebastian Job's going very quick as well, as we'll take a little bit of a sneak peek at the session itself here, with drivers just out there in practice getting their last little things they want to sort out dialed in terms of maybe the setup and in terms of just driving with other cars on track, because a lot of these drivers, they're sometimes in practice sessions with only their teammates and their compatriots. They don't usually all practice all together like this, so it's good to get the site set.
It certainly is, and the hashtag has been never not racing. There you go, I've got the hat on. Let's get racing, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have my hat to hand now, unfortunately, so
doesn't fit me well.
You kind of upstaged me just a little bit. But absolutely fantastic stuff. I'm all prepared for this for today's events. I'm sure you are as well, Paul, on the commentary. Just very quickly, do you have any pick for this race, or are you just going to leave that on the table until
I think a driver driving a Porsche is going to do extremely well here today, and as always, I'm going to sit on the fence here. I just want a tremendous race. Let's not have any shenanigans. Let's get on and get some hard action out there today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. That has been your Tag Heuer countdown. And, we'll just be back with the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup in just a couple of moments. Paul and Matt will be with you just after this.
"40 of the best sim racers. $200,000 on the line. Who will rise to the challenge?" Interlagos, Barcelona, Imola, Silverstone, Road Atlanta, Montreal, Spa, Nürburgring, Le Mans, Monza. This is racing for immortality. This is esports personified. This is the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup.
Green flag drops, away we go from the start of this final feature race in the Porsche Esports Supercup. Brilliant launch.
40 of the best sim racers. $200,000 on the line. Who will rise to the challenge? This is racing for immortality. This is esports personified. This is the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup.
if it's drama, excitement and intrigue that you want, then, well, you've come to the right place, that's for sure. It's the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing. Well, it's myself, Paul Smith, and Matt Trivett on commentary here today. And, well, certainly it's been an enthralling opening to the season at Interlagos last time out, Matt. But this week, Barcelona, different track, different style of racing around here.
I won't say the word flowing because I think Interlagos has good flow, but Barcelona's got a little bit more speed to it. It's a little more open, a bit more wide open throttle, if you will. But some of these high speed corners can cause a lot of issues on tires, which is something we're going to be talking about nonstop in this race, as well as setup because air temperatures are different. And that's one of the biggest factors in iRacing is put those three together and you're going to come up with some sort of magic in the setup to make it work, hopefully better than everyone else.
Well, last time out we were in Barcelona. This time we have come across the Atlantic to Spain, and it is the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya. And you can see the track layout. Now, that track layout that you see there, it's a flat line. So the deeper red part down into turn 1, that's the lowest point of the track. And then the highest point of the track around turn 11 and 12. See those little markers as well? Those are the key overtaking spots around here. But Matt, we're really going to see people try a little dive into that final chicane as well.
It's a tricky one. Yeah, it's a low-speed corner. You can maybe sneak it up the inside and sort of, I would say, usurp the line. But it's a bit difficult to do because it's very tight, it's very narrow, and it does lead to turn 16, which is extremely important to get right because it's a very long front straightaway. So, yeah, you're right. People are going to see gaps and go for it. The famous Ayrton Senna line, which actually I think is more condemning than helpful because everyone thinks a gap is fair game, but it certainly could cause some issues, and guys that are sort of not in the fight but next in line might be able to capitalize on those moves.
You're not missing a thing. We're about a minute away from the start of the qualifying, and well, the drivers are just getting themselves prepared, those final preparations before they go into qualifying. But really, you mentioned about the conditions, 18.7 degrees air temperature, 31.7 degrees track temperature in the warm-up.
Amazing.
It certainly is a lot different to how we saw last time up.
And what that does is creates a bit more possibility in the setup. Because it was so hot in Interlagos, you were going to have tires that were breaking away, and therefore you needed to bring grip into the car. You were going to be a loose track, so you need a tight car. And a lot of the guys I talked to were running max wing, really trying to keep the thing as dialed as possible, whereas now you're going to have a little bit more grip on the surface, so you might be able to get away with less wing if you drive accordingly. Ride height's another big factor that you can start to play with, the rake of the car, how you're going to get airflow through it. It's not as important for aero even necessarily around here as it is as much for some of these big sausage curbs. You can see it in the S's up the hill. We saw it certainly in the All-Star race. So there's a bit more chance to play, and you're going to see some different setups, which means you might see different pace throughout the race at different parts of it. Now, that said, you might think the lower temps are better for the tire degradation, but as you pointed out before the broadcast even started today, Paul, Josh Thompson was already mentioning there's a lot of degradation. There's a lot of high-speed corners where you're leaning into that rubber and really demanding a lot out of it.
You certainly are. Well, qualifying is getting underway. The drivers are going to be heading themselves out of the pit lane and will be getting themselves prepared, getting their cars, the tyres, and those tyre pressures as well up to temperature to the ideal point. And really, this is where you can really use and abuse those tyres. But there's the number 15 up on screen then. And, well, what a run it is being. Zach Campbell, he gave us such hope in that opening race.
Yeah.
Just missed out on that podium in the end.
Yeah, came very close. Unfortunately, lost it at the top of the hill when he was trying to make a move to the inside. Just put too much demand on the rear of the car, and it went around on him. That actually gave Zach Campbell the rookie honors for the weekend. But I think Charlie Collins looked phenomenal in the course of that opening weekend, and definitely one to watch. We know that he and a few of his stablemates, certainly Kevin Ellis Jr., looked fantastic. Kevin Ellis had a heck of an opening weekend, wins the feature race. Looked great the whole way through. And we mentioned he was kind of a breakthrough of last season in 2020. In 2019, he picked up a win. Didn't last year, but got, I think, 3 second places. Now he's already got a win on the board, and maybe he can start to be someone that has another step forward. He was 5th in the championship last year. Top 3 would be amazing, but I'm sure he's already thinking bigger than that.
He certainly will. Well, here we are then. Zach Campbell, one of our rookies this year. And you mentioned it, Rookie of the Week last week, so he'll be hoping to have a good one. But there's your 2020 champion. Had an awful time out last time at Interlagos, having technical issues in race number 2, ruling him out of any points. But he'll be hoping that this is a reset for him.
Yeah, and best of the rest in qualifying, started 12th, managed to work his way up in the field, and then was doing the same in the feature race. I think he had the pace to get to something like 5th. Certainly would have been in that battle. That's where Graham kind of ended up, was right in that area with Pinto and a few of the other guys. And unfortunately, the technical issues took him out. Last year, he was the star of the opening weekend. Him and his teammate, Graham Carroll. Graham won the sprint race at Zandvoort. He won the feature race, Sebastian Job. Didn't go that way this time around, and it was here where the drum actually hit them, and Josh Rogers was involved in drama. I want to tell that story because the other side of that last year was a horrible opening round for Maximilian Benecca, and he had a horrible qualifying last week too. He was the star of Barcelona, took both wins last season. Another guy that was very good was Cinder Setsas as well, and a few others that were pretty notable in that round. But the point is, that qualifying actually turned in from a 22nd place to a 13th place to a 2nd place in the feature race for Max Benecca. And if he's able to echo what he did last year in Barcelona here today, he's going to be a massive contender in this championship throughout the season. Certainly one that we have to watch for the favorite, but Sebastian Job's going to finish up his lap right now. We're just starting to get a feel on these out laps as who's going to be where. Again, the qualifying, you do inherit the pole. So if you get pole position this season, you do start first in the sprint race, and then it's a top 8 reverse grid for the features. So the battle for 8th is always one to watch, I think, in the first race, Paul, to see who's going to end up on the front row.
Well, here comes Sebastian then, around the final corner. The finish line is not that far away, as actually we cut to Max Benecca, who's actually got some front damage. So he's hit a curb somewhere, and he's got front damage. That'll be affecting him slightly top speed-wise. He comes across the line. We're starting to get those first lap times coming in now. Maxim Bramstein quit momentarily, provisionally on pole, but now Alejandro Sanchez to the top of the timing screen, and skip that because Sindre Setsos a 46.9, the first driver into the 46ers. So the times are coming in thick and fast, but this second lap is where it's going to be crucial.
And there's Josh Rogers. He's going to pip them all 2/10. He goes 46.7 on the front. Remember our All-Star race? They were doing mid-49s. These guys are all past that. So close all the way down. In fact, I think what is it, the front 20 drivers still on the same second, but Josh holds close from Mitchell de Jong. He was another great race in the great weekend in the opening race because he's, I think, finished 3rd in the feature. He's only 0.04 back of Josh right now, so he is definitely going to be pushing all season as we continue to watch Max Benecca come around on his hot lap. But you're right, that damage doesn't affect him. Certainly would love to have a good qualifying here.
Yeah, he certainly is. Up to the turn number 9, tricky corner. As we'll look then at another one of your newcomers to the championship, Daniel Lafuente. No lap time, respective lap time put in yet. He's got a 54.3, which is not going to be a competitive lap. That's more of a preparation lap that he did on his first flying lap. This is where he's trying to really make it count on the second lap. There's also the third lap, don't forget. The drivers get 3 laps to set their lap times here, so it's not a massive panic.
And generally speaking, the second one's actually faster for the tires and the way that they work in terms of bringing heat into them. So we'll see if that trend is something to watch in this race. It certainly was at Interlagos. Another candidate for well, I won't say pole, but he's not far off of it right now, but certainly someone to watch this race weekend. Dwayne Warren. He was fast at Interlagos, but got caught up in the wars, fell back quite deep in the races, unfortunately, as a result of that, but was very strong here last year. In fact, I think he had the 3rd highest points total from the Barcelona weekend. So right now sits 3rd provisionally with a 46.767, just 0.005 back off Mitchell de Jong. These guys at the front are so close right now.
There you go. There's the standings. The timing tower on the left-hand side. So it's Joshua Rogers provisionally on pole for the time being. Mitchell de Jong second ahead of Dane Warren third. Charlie Collins, one of your rookies, fourth place with Matt Backham in fifth. Sindre Setsos is in sixth place. Really good opening lap from him. Not really improved on his second lap, but he might be just preparing himself for one final lap at the end of qualifying here.
You want to hear a ridiculous stat? Josh Rogers, there's been 22 rounds of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup, and I say 22, there's been 21 championship rounds, so we'll knock off one. He's had 17 pole positions in the 3 seasons out of 21 championship rounds. That's a ridiculous amount that he sits provisionally at the front right now. Last year, he had 8 from 10. He only didn't get the championship, you could argue, because of the reverse grid structure. Now, last week, it looked like, yeah, he's going to capitalize. He won the sprint race. Reverse grid, made a very ambitious move up at the top of the hill heading into turn 6. Actually made contact, clipped the inside of the curb, if you remember, lost the car. It was very odd looking from the outside. I think he was just being a little bit too aggressive on the curb when he was trying to keep it up the inside to get the braking point, but took out Alejandro Sanchez as well, and that was last year's 3rd place driver, so that was a big drama. Alejandro managed to recover to, I think, 12th place in the race. Josh Rogers fell to 23rd, so thankfully still scored points in the feature, but just barely.
Daniel Lafuente then across the line finishes up in 30th with that qualifying effort. Here we are on board Mitchell de Jong, the man from California, and he really is putting everything into this lap. And I could tell you, looking at my timing screen, a purple first sector on this last lap, so he is absolutely on it here, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely is. And he's looking very delicate. It's a different driving style for Mitchell de Jong, being smooth and in control. He's known in real life for throwing cars sideways and rallycross. He's been a very, very fast and aggressive driver with good success, backed by a certain drink company in that championship. But yeah, part of the world's fastest gamer last year. He's been in Porsche Esports Supercup for quite a while now and looking very, very solid so far.
Well, he's going to find himself coming through the end of the lap here, and he'll be trying to get himself that time through the final corner, across the timing line. What is it going to be? It's going to be to the top of the standings for Mitchell de Jong, ahead of Josh Rogers then at the end of qualifying. There are still 3 minutes of qualifying remaining, so people can still put in those qualifying times. Joshua Rogers is on a good second sector as well. He's done a personal best. In fact, he's done a purple sector in sector 2 on his second timed lap here. He's going to come across the line very shortly indeed. Here's Thibaut Casabon, who is down your field. The 221 driver down all the way down in 37th. I can tell you, Josh Rogers pipping Mitchell de Jong by just under 1/10 of a second to the top of your standings. So move Josh, the king of qualifying, up to the top of the standings. Rest of your drivers moving through. Matikai de Soya has improved up into 12th place. 2020 champion, 16th place. It has been an absolute nightmare as the start of this championship for him. Here's Casabon trying to get to the end of his qualifying lap. He's one of the last few drivers actually out there to be getting a lap time in here, Matt. But this is, this is a sensational start to the championship here.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it. And man, oh man, just when we thought we had someone that might beat Josh Rogers to a pole position, not going to happen. He gets it back just barely for now, I say. It looks as though that will be pretty much it as I look at the timing screen. But just to go back to Sebastian Job, you're right, down in 16th. He was 12th last week in qualifying, and it's not working out for him the way he'd want to. Now, again, it's not a team's championship, but something to consider is that Red Bull Racing, their esports team, only has 2 drivers in this championship. It's Sebastian Job and Graham Carroll. And when they practice together. Now, when you look at the other side of that, you get a team like VRS that has 11 drivers, and they can do mock races. They can do full race stints with each other. They can push each other. They got a lot more versatility in practice to lean on for information. So it is something to consider that Sebastian's having to really work with Graham and push. It's kind of almost like being a privateer in a championship like this. So it's very difficult. And I think that I've heard them lamenting about that a little bit this year, that it's tough to get motivated and find that little extra bit. So we'll have to see if his racecraft can save him a bit here today.
Well, Jeff Kiasic out there on track right now, trying to get the end of his qualifying here. He is down in 23rd at the moment. He is trying to get himself into a bit of an improved position. So across the line he goes. What will he do? He is going to be, well, he's not going to get another lap in here, so he doesn't improve, still in 23rd place. And here Christopher Dan beats as well across the line, and he also does not improve. So we're at the end of qualifying here at the moment, and very shortly we will be able to give you your starting grid here. And well, we'll wait for that grid to come up on screen. But it is another pole position then for Joshua Rogers. Make that 18 pole positions in this championship for Josh. Second place on the grid, Mitchell de Jong as well. Other drivers, Sindre Setsos, fantastic lap for him down on row number 3. Further down your field, Matakai Desoya as well, row 6, along with Jack Sedgwick, who didn't have the best of times last time out. And looking through here, Maxim Ramstein, one of the new drivers, doing so well. 2020 champion Sebastian Job, row number 8, along with Max Benneker. Well, he had a good time here last year, not this time. The rest of your field, Kevin Ellis Jr. down on row number 11 for the Scotsman, not being a good one. Matt, I mean, we're looking at this grid as the rest of them come through. It's going to be tough in the sprint race to be able to make your way forward. 9 laps, it's not the longest time around this track.
An all-Scottish row as well with Kevin Ellis Jr. alongside Graham Carroll, but this is going to be very difficult. I don't know if you saw, I know we read it out, but keen viewers, Max Beneke is down there with Sebastian Job as well. Now, remember, he won both races here last season, so things have certainly changed. We mentioned, iRacing constantly evolving and putting a lot of effort into their sim. It's kind of like getting a new tire from the tire manufacturer each season. You've got to adapt. There's updates to the game. Maybe there's something in that. Certainly guys like Mitchell de Jong have looked phenomenal on that. You also pointed out Sindre Setsos, a phenomenal race from him last year at this circuit, so he looks to continue that. The other one that had a decent points total here last year was Tommy Østergaard, who looked pretty good last week as well, but didn't quite convert that. I think he was 4th in the sprint race, but then went a little backwards in the features. So yeah, lots of guys that are so close, but seem to just not be consistent in putting it together. Have great opportunities to do so today with some of the big names down on the field.
Well, here we go then. The sprint race in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup is underway, and it's a good launch by Joshua Rogers from the front row of the grid. A long drag down to turn number 1 though. Get your slipstream. Try and get a move to the inside. Mitchell de Jong looking to the inside, but not going to make it up into the lead. Then Warren, 3rd place for him with Charlie Collins behind him. Rest of your field working their way through. Are they all going to make it clean through turn number 3? I can tell you no, because Ricardo Rico has dropped down the timing screen along with Josh Thompson, so drama further back in your field. But as we head on to turn number 4, we're going 2-3 wide into this hairpin, long sweeping hairpin, then slow it right down, get yourself to the inside, try and make a move. And well, there's still going side by side. There's more contact further back as well. And I think there's been Jamie Fluke involved at the hairpin at turn number 5. So a number of drivers having issues out there further down. The ones at the front though doing well. Setsos looking to get 5th place here, Matt.
Trying desperately, some battles deep as well. Jeremy Bouteloup and David Williams going wheel to wheel for 3 corners. Finally, we start to get some stabilization at the front, but the mid-pack just as wide on the run to turn 10. And we jump straight back into it. Those 3 VRS cars, I mentioned Bouteloup and Williams, they've got their teammate in that mix as well, and a bit of contact, it looked like, for Tommy Østergaard. Well, hopefully it doesn't take too much damage, but at the front, I say it, they've stabilized already, and this is good because now a rhythm is important. If tire degradation is as
high as they say. You've got to get slowed and settled early. That's not going to do it, says one of the red line cars off into the wall.
That's Dan Beats. He's off then at turn number 12. And we've got Matty Soya. We just see behind the timing board there with Johan Hart. So they're around as well. Well, this has been a chaotic run further down your field, but at the front of the field, it's all been nice and clean. There's a Red Bull car going side by side further back, just by your top 10. I saw in the background of the shot. They're still going at it, but there's your leaders then. It's Rogers, De Jong, Warren, Collins. Setsos in 4th place. That's a little bit back though. He's dropped about a second back for the time being. Then Krunker, Backham, Østergaard, David Williams, a good start for him, and Jeremy Bootloob rounds out your top 10. Sebastian Job though, good start for him. He's moving up positions. In fact, he's going for 10th place. Oh, I'm just seeing on my timing screen, they're switching positions.
I say he's got it. You're right. It's obviously wheel to wheel because the timing screen's going back and forth, he and Jeremy Bootloob. But remember, top 8 is reverse. Job's goal has to be to get at least 2 more positions to give himself a fantastic spot in the feature to make the most of this situation in qualifying, as we're on board with Charlie Collins and our Vodafone on board. A little bit of bent hood, does it look like from that perspective? I think he's been in the wars. I certainly saw some damage on the front of Alexander Tibé's car as well. The green liveried Red Line Racing, green and red. There you go, Christmas themed. But that's the case in this track. It's the opening lap especially, and we saw that drama last year that took out Josh Rogers in the chicane and certainly involved a number of other drivers. It's fast, it's flowing, and it's wide at the start. And because the corners are long and wide, you can get on the power and you can maintain position side by side. But as soon as you get to Sector 3, these changes that they did to keep the speeds down for safety, adding the chicane that we're looking at now, it gets so tight. And if you still haven't found your spot in the line, if you speak, you see exactly that. People jostling for position, a spinner in the background, and it just doesn't work. You get funneled into such a tight position.
Yeah, Carlos Fenelus and Ayeshan Guvan were involved in that. But looking back to lap 1, because there was drama on lap 1 for Sanchez was involved here. It all got a little bit tight into the back of Jack Sedgwick and then gets tagged by Guvan. And Graham Carroll was involved there. Johan Hart, you see, having to spin it around as well. That was all on lap 1. We just saw it get tight and getting tangled up in lap 2 as well. So we said that people were going to maybe try a move into that chicane. And, well, we're seeing it happen, but it's not working out.
But it's turn 10 onward. You can maintain such good position in battles all the way through from the start of the lap. The S's get a little tight at 7 and 8, 9 over the hill, you get a run to 10, but then 10, 11, 13, 14, 15, they're all such tight corners. And when you're side by side like that, especially in the chicane, it's going to happen. It's going to happen every year, I'm afraid. And it's just the nature of 40 extremely competitor and extremely talented close racers on track together as Rogers continues to lead, but Mitchell de Jong not giving him much breathing room. Dwayne Warren, I mentioned it, great time out last year at Barcelona. Got robbed perhaps of a good finish last week in Interlagos, is looking to make amends for that. He's hot on the heels as well, and it's all red cars at the front. I think I'm going to put some more red on my car next year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the colour to go for, it seems. But look, just behind this front 4, Sindre Setsos, he's on the pace with those leading pack, that leading 4. So Setsos is doing all he can to try and keep up now. Sebastian Job, this is a great start for him because he's up to 9th place. He started 16th on the grid, so he's really pushing his way forward here in this race. One more position here, Matt, and you can see them squabbling in front, and he's got the reverse grid pull for the feature race. So that, as you mentioned, is his sole target right now.
Yeah, and we're halfway into this race, give or take 4 on lap 4, so I suppose just shy of halfway, but tires start to be a factor. Sebastian's absolutely pushing. He wants these positions. Now, I haven't seen all of his onboard and all of his action, but presumably he's putting a lot of stress on those to get these positions, knowing that that's key for the next race. Question is, how much does he have left in them? Who else is going to be behind him that might capitalize again? Obviously, Tommy Østergaard's managed to hold position in front, but Bootloo's gone backwards, had a few slides. He might be in an okay position here to hang on, and it's making the most of it. That's why the reverse grid is so important, and there's going to be a lot more battling going on in that back half of the top 10 because of it, and everyone knows it. You're at the front, it's okay, take the points, get the position for the next race, don't throw it away. But if you're in the back half, yeah, you got a lot more to push.
Well, you can see that the calm, cool and collected Josh Rogers in the lead of this sprint race. Of course, won the sprint race last time out at Interlagos. Pole position once again, 2 from 2 for him here in this season's Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup. You can see right behind the pressure on him, De Jong, Warren and Collins. Here's Max Benneker then, 13th. He started back with Sebastian Job on that row of the grid. He's down in 13th at the moment. He's putting the pressure on the cars in front. He's got a nice clean car, and Jack Sedgwick right in front of him. They're pushing that track limits all the way to the edge of the gravel trap. You need to carry as much speed as you can down this straight, because the slipstream is quite strong this year. It's had a little bit of a change this year, and right now there just seems to be a little bit of a slipstream train there with the drivers in front here.
Max is known to be extremely aggressive, and he certainly was in Interlagos to go from effectively 22nd in qualifying to 2nd in the feature race. Didn't actually inherit that based on reverse grid because he was 13th in the first race. So that was all elbows out, and Graham Carroll's behind him again this time. I know Graham said after the race, I was just letting him open the door for me, and he's going to open another one as Benneker goes up the inside. And it's Sedgwick that will fall 1 position back. He had a tough first weekend, Jack Sedgwick, but it's worth noting he did very well in the Porsche Supercup that they do, the Great Britain Champion. And I think all 5 or 6 drivers that are in this championship double dutied last week and also raced at Silverstone in that cup. And he was pretty quick. In fact, I think it's Kevin Ellis Jr. that leads that championship, and guys like Sebastian Job are in there as well. So that's good experience for him again at race with these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. As they head on through turn number 9, we're going to get a replay from something that happened earlier on that we'll get to see. Sebastian Job looking to the inside of 10, and he's going to make that move for Tommy Erstgaard. This is the battle for 8th place. This is pole position for the feature race at stake here. There's 5 laps now, just about to start, 4 laps to go here. Job is showing his intent right now. He's all over the back of Erstgaard, and Tommy has got to be careful not to overdrive, but Sebastian has got to be careful not to make any contact as well. They come through the final corner. It's all about the drive out of the corner, down the start and finish straight, and right now Sebastian not able to make any moves. Here's the big the replay up on screen. Brian Lockwood into the back of Jamie Fluke. This is on lap 1 of the race, and well, multiple cars got caught up in all of that one. That was a huge instant, took out quite a few drivers.
I think Lockwood was a bit ambitious. Yeah, okay, there's a gap there, but that's a tight left-hand corner at turn 10, and he's trying to make it 3 wide, locks up, realizes he probably shouldn't have been there, and yeah, that just was a massive Constantina effect going backwards. Once again, though, we jump on with Sebastian Job. Again, still trying to get by at this point, Tommy Østgaard, and he's all over him. Østgaard driving a pretty wide Porsche at this point in time. It's got a fantastic set of hips on the back of the 911. I've always been a fan of that car for the back end, but a little bit wider than perhaps Sebastian Job wants right now, and he's probably sick of staring at that particular one.
Yeah, Sebastian, his poor parents aren't allowed to use any internet at all whilst he's racing in this championship, so they can't even watch their own son
head down
racing in this.
Take advantage of the Wi-Fi.
Well, we would if we could, if it wasn't for a lockdown. True. But anyway, but still, they'll watch this back and they'll be rooting on Sebastian here as he comes out of turn number 10 through 11. Use all of the curb there. Give yourself a straight line braking for turn number 12. You can't really make any moves, any dives at this point of the track. You just got to be patient and wait for the opportunity to come. Although he's showing there's a car in front, was all sorts of out of shape. That was Martin Krunker who got out of shape going into the chicane. Managed to hold on to it, but that would have been a heart-in-mouth moment there.
Yeah, good read by Sebastian as well, because they were both wide. You saw there was I think it was more avoidance than it was an attack from Østgaard, and caused him to get on the brakes a little earlier, and then Sebastian saw it and actually tried to get back on the main racing line to get the momentum. So clearly looking far ahead to see that drama as we get a little bit of an action further back inside line, and up the inside goes the lovely number 10 car, the SimCube car, but not down there because Halsey's coming back at him, and this is a battle well in the field that includes Alejandro Sanchez, who again has a pretty poor weekend. I think this time maybe his pace was a bit off. Interlagos, I mentioned it, taken out by Josh Rogers, but not going to love this situation.
It's Salva Talons at the back of this group. Actually, it's not Sanchez there.
It's the same car,
He's further up. Yeah, it's absolutely same livery. It doesn't help us on occasions, that's for sure. But Salva Talons there in 20th. That was a battle for 16th there, further back that we were seeing with Thomas Tetela and Jack Sedgwick. But there's your leaders on screen, the front four. They've just broken away from Sindre Setsource in that field, and Setsource is having quite a lonely race out there. 5th place, nobody really challenging him at the moment, but it's a good showing from Sindre to be up there and putting some a good position to start the feature race.
Worth noting as well that Sedgwick's starting to drop back quite a bit in the field, because formerly he was in the mix a little bit further up. So yeah, perhaps tires getting away from him, having to defend as much as he has. Not much defending needed from Josh Rogers. Oh, car wide in the background, and I think that's Charlie Collins that's outbraked himself in the chicane. It's Dwayne Warren that was just in front, putting some pressure on Mitchell de Jong now, but that's a big gap behind as a result. Did he hold the position? That's the question. Setsource is going to be all over him.
Well, here we go. Connery is going to join us. Connery, what have you got for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're just talking about this battle as they're heading side by side down in towards turn number 1, and Charlie Collins was complaining about a lot of understeer and having to brake earlier than he was previously able to. And well, the opposite of that, Sindre was seeming pretty optimistic a little bit earlier on, at least at the very start of the race, but it seems like he's picking this back end as well.
Thank you very much, Connery. So yeah, Sindre trying to take advantage of that mistake from Collins then, Matt. And with 2 laps to go, if you're going to make a move, you need to be thinking about making that rather quick.
And well, this is the problem that they now have. Collins, look, I don't want to see the guy lose it again when he's on for a great result, because he was the front-running rookie in Interlagos, just didn't capitalize, lost it under braking at the top of the hill in Barcelona, or excuse me, in Interlagos. But now the problem is, you say, you're right, make a move, you've got to think about it with 2 to go. But this might be for 4th. Look at the train behind. If you make a move and make a mistake, you're falling out of that top 8. There's more to lose. The risk reward is extremely high. If those fronts are gone, though, for Charlie Collins, it might be a chance to see red. And I'm sure Setsource would love the results. So it's a fine line. Do you attack or defend? And right now we're going to see a little bit more of that going on at the front. The battle for second, Mitchell de Jong under immense pressure from Dwayne Warren.
Yeah, Dwayne Warren is putting the pressure on Mitchell then as we're heading into that tight, twisty section. A lot of people don't like this chicane. They like the old sweeping layout, but actually I think it gives the opportunities for mistakes to happen, though, to give you the opportunities. We've got leaders and also that battle for 8th. On the top is the lead, the bottom is 8th, and Sebastian just can't get past Tommy Erstgaard here.
It's certainly a more technical part, you're right. It gives a more slow-speed section to the track. I liked the old flow and the raw speed of it, but it definitely adds an element that can catch people out, especially a car like a Porsche Cup. Sebastian's up the inside. It's going to be tight, but this is where you can hold turn 2, not with a wiggle like that.
There was a squeeze from Tommy Erstgaard there, and Job down the inside of 3. Can he hold it? He's got the inside line for turn 4. You can hang it around the outside here if you're Tommy Erstgaard. Oh, locks up from Sebastian. That's going to cost him 1 place, if not 2 places, because here comes Jeremy Bootsloop now to try and take that place back. But no. Oh, Erstgaard's made a mistake. Erstgaard is around. Job is in 8th. No, he's not. He's in 9th because Bootsloop has taken advantage of all of that, got himself up into 8th place. This is all for pole position in your feature race. Job is still there. They're giving each other room, but it's still tight between the 2 of them through 9. Job has got the inside line. Bootsloop could get on the power earlier, though, around the outside. This is the run down to turn number 10. This is really your last major overtaking opportunity. Look who's loitering around within 10. Max Benneker has got involved in this one. Job into 8th. Bootsloop now battling for his life for 9th place with Max Benneker. You see the leaders in the bottom right-hand corner. They're coming around the final couple of corners now, but Bootsloop still hanging on. Benneker holding that inside line. He's trying to get it, trying to get the position. He's not going to do it, but your race leader across the line to win the sprint race here in this race at Barcelona for the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup. The man who's going to be in 8th place is Sebastian Job across the line. Wow, that was fast and frenetic, and it all happened there on the last lap, Matt.
Unbelievable. Heart and mouth moment for Sebastian Job, locking it in turn 4. And I thought maybe even off the circuit. I thought he wasn't going to get it slowed down because you got to get off the brakes. You can't keep locking and you got to get it turned in. And he manages to do so just barely. And then they get down the hill under braking. And I don't think there was contact there. I think Boutaloop lost that, or excuse me, Ustagaard lost that all on his own. Back and forth again. Job loses the position. They manage to battle it, and then in comes Beneke. It will be reverse grid pole, though, for Sebastian Job, and he wanted that. He went for that. That is elbows out. Look, we talked about the pole positions from Josh Rogers, now 18, but he's not the most winning driver. Sebastian's had 10 wins in this series, so a pole for him could certainly be converted in the feature.
Well, here is your unofficial results from that sprint race. Josh Rogers, the winner by 6.5 tenths of a second ahead of Mitchell de Jong. Dane Warren in third place ahead of Charlie Collins. Sindre Setsos, great result for him, 5th place ahead of Matt Backham. Martin Krunkat, 7th ahead of the man who's going to start from pole position, Sebastian Job. Jeremy Boutaloop and Max Beneke crossed the line in 9th and 10th place.
You want to talk about heartbreak, too. Look at this timing screen. Look who's at the bottom. Ustagaard, 20th. He was arguably one corner from pole position in this next race.
Certainly was. You see those positions. Alejandro Sanchez again, not a good race for him. Patrick Holtzman, Graham Carroll further down your order as well. Jeff Giassi will be disappointed with that. Brian Lockwood, one of those drivers involved earlier on, and well, you see those drivers. Castraledo down in 30th place, not a good day for him. And then the rest of them, only 34 actually finished this race. The rest of them, Zach Campbell, Gard, Hart, Fenalosa, et al., all did not finish that sprint race, but hopefully we'll be able to speak to the race leader. But yeah, that was really intense at the end of that race. It all picked up suddenly.
Yeah, all picked up indeed, but if anyone had an easy time, it might have been the man in front with nothing to look at except track. Beautiful, clear picture in front of you, Josh.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Yeah, we from the start there, I think my focus was just to try and keep looking forward as much as I could. Try to just focus on hitting my marks. Don't worry about too much about what's in the mirror. Coming from last round, I think that the big thing that I'm going to try and work on this round is patience, and I think obviously that's going to be more of a factor in the feature starting from P8. But the car feels good. It feels great over a race run, which is exactly what we want, especially around this circuit. The drop off and the degradation feels quite high, especially in the rear tires. The track is probably only going to heat up over the course of this session, so that's going to make things a little bit worse in that regard. But all in all, happy with that one. This race should be exciting, but look forward to it.
18 poles now for you in 22 rounds, which is utterly insane. But now you actually start pole, reverse grid. Do you think this favors you, or is it more stress in the feature? Is it, the experience of coming through the field? Is it, I don't know. Do you like the rule change?
I like it. Ultimately, I think it's great that qualifying at least has a little bit more of an effect. Obviously, with the feature now, there are more points on offer for that race. So starting back in the pack a little bit is sometimes quite nerve-wracking, especially when you know how important the points are in those feature races. But it's nice to be able to kind of make sure, or at least know that, okay, after the sprint, assuming all goes well, you've got some good points on the table that you can kind of take through the rest of the event. But it's probably just as stressful, to be fair, but at least we at least can start off the front row one of the times.
Yeah, well, there you go. You get a nice clear track and you made the most of it. Congrats on the sprint race. Hit the reset button. Get ready for the feature. It's going to be pretty intense, I think, for everyone. Sebastian's made it back to 8th, so he'll start on pole. That brings the championship picture back in maybe for him if he can make amends with, obviously, the technical difficulties last week. Car number 92 takes the win. I love to see it. That's my number for those of you who maybe don't know. Probably no one knows because no one knows me, so that's fine. But Paul, I think the reason I asked that question, it seems obvious. Reverse grid, it might seem, you get pole position, you start the front row. That sounds amazing. The reason I bring that up is in the sprint race, everyone's a little more level. When you have to do the reverse grid in the feature, as opposed to being guaranteed sort of 2 top 8 starts, it could be difficult to battle through. And last week you get caught out in it.
Well, Well, we'll be able to discuss that a bit more at length, but right now, let's head on over to the Super Cup feature race coming up next.
CJ, box this lap.
Not right now, boys. Come on, baby. Go for it. Go for it. Go.
Hey, CJ, you wanna come back in? CJ, are you there?
I'm staying out. Get you later, boys.
CJ, come on back in, buddy.
Risk.
What is he doing?
Oh, go, 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 go! I'm gonna stay in the car. Don't get up. Here I go.
Hey guys. How about some gas for the car, and I'm gonna get some coffee.
We're just moments away from the feature race here in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing. Paul Smith here on commentary along with Matt Trivett, aka Sadakist, and things sort of simmered for quite a while. We had a few incidents on lap 1 and lap 2, then calmed down, but then that last lap, it just all broke out there, didn't it, Matt?
And it's exactly the battle you would predict. And again, this is why I asked the question to Josh Rogers. In the first race, the front 8 tend to be fairly calm. It's the battle for 8 that becomes very important, and therefore the gloves come off, because you want that pole position in the final. And you can see how quickly it can go wrong as well for Tommy Østergaard, who goes all the way back to 20th place when he could have easily been on the front row. It's exactly that reason why maybe starting reverse in the feature, when everyone's just going for it, it can be tougher to get through the field. And that's where Josh Rogers needs to prove himself now and make amends for the first weekend. Great recovery, Sebastian Job. Benecca almost gets in there as well and has a chance at the front row and makes up for a qualifying that ultimately saw him well down the order. But yeah, that was brilliant at the end, but it's what we expect. It's all about that reverse grid.
Certainly is, and well, Sebastian Job then going to be starting on the front row. He's going to be trying his best to make the most of this after the nightmare that he had at the opening round of the championship at Interlagos. This is what he needs now to really kickstart his title defense, but nobody has defended a championship so far in this series, as we'll have a look at the track map, because really here, Matt, we saw where those key instances happened in that opening race, down into the hairpin at 5 being one of them.
Yeah, hairpin at 5, absolutely. And it always is, it's a bit of a run downhill. You're usually attacking into 4, and that's what creates the opportunity at 5, because you're kind of getting offline, you're killing momentum for the other person, and it creates opportunity. But it's the funneling effect of the chicane at the end of the lap where we saw a lot of the drama. And I have a feeling we're going to see a bit more now. The opening lap is so close, and everyone's so or still squabbling for position by the time we get there, and so close they get funneled in. Yeah, it would take a lot of responsibility on everyone's behalf to get through there without a bit of contact. So hopefully some of the guys that you mentioned it, 5 guys that didn't finish, they can get through from the back this time and get a clean start. The one that I saw that stood out, certainly there were some big names, but Zach Campbell, who was the rookie winner last weekend, was unfortunately caught up in that this time around.
Yeah, certainly. For those wondering about that track map, where you see the deeper parts of the red line, that's where it's actually the lowest point of the track, and where the line is at its shallowest is the top part of the track, where it's at its highest altitude. So that's why you're seeing that like that. But yeah, it's a tremendous circuit. Of course, I will always forever remember sitting there in front of the television with my father in 1991, watching Nigel Mansell and Ayrton Senna down towards turn number 1, sparks flying from the cars. And that's what we see here today. We've seen that time and again, drivers being able to go side by side down into turn number 1. But we'll be getting ready for the start of the feature race here in just a few moments. We'll be getting that grid up on screen for you any moment. And well, Sebastian Job is going to be starting on pole position here today, with Martin Krunke second place, Matt Backham third ahead of Sindra Setsos. Great race for Sindra to get himself in 4th place. As you see the starting grid, there's the front 3 rows with Dane Warren dangerous there in 6th place. Your race 1 winner Joshua Rogers on row number 4. Max Benneker, what can he do from 10th place? Kevin Ellis Jr. not having a good day, but finds himself in 12th. Patrick Holtzman, Graham Carroll, they were inseparable in that first race there. Further down your grid as we quickly run through this here. Brian Lockwood not being the best start for him, but we are green here for the feature race of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup. Sebastian Job is having to go defensive early on, takes the wider line down into turn number 1, 3 wide. There's a little bit of a mistake there, and that is the 16, and that's Matt Backham. It's going to be a massive slowdown penalty. The sim will give him a slowdown penalty. Through turn number 3 they go. Remember, cold tyres here for these drivers. They've got to bring those tyres up to temperature. Into turn number 4 then, the hairpin. We're going too wide in your field. Max Benneker is loitering there with intent. The orange and white car you see down below the number 11. Jeremy Bootsloop looking wide through turn number 5 as we get on the power. This through turn 6 is where Benneker then can have that inside line for 7. You can run too wide, but you've got to be cooperative through there, and Bootsloop gets pushed wide there. Kevin Ellis Jr. goes around the outside, your feature race winner from Interlagos, and now down in towards turn number 10. Still close action all the way through, but it's Job from Setsos at the front of the field. Charlie Collins in 3rd place.
This is where it's going to get so tight, and already we've got contact. That's going to cause a lot of problems further back as everyone has to avoid the spinning car, and we've got more. It's Jeremy Bootsloop that gets through. I think that might be Is it Tommy Oscar that far back? No, it's got to be Williams at that point. And we've got a car upside down. We've got more drama. That's a bad rejoin, I have to say.
Ellis Jr., he had that issue at turn 10, and then he's been turned around. We've got a car around. It was a Williams car. That must be Graham Carroll.
Yeah.
That was he's down in 15th now. So as across the line we go, it's Job in the lead, Setzel second, Collins third, Warren fourth, De Jong fifth, Rogers up into 6th place ahead of Max Benneker in 7th, Thomas Tetela in 8th place, Sanchez and Williams round out your top 10. But this track, I don't know what it is, but lap 1, these drivers seem super aggressive.
It's just, again, because it's such fast corners, you can hold your nerve. You can see it with Boodle. It was a perfect overhead shot. If you know, in these big sweeping corners where it's all about exit speed and making sure you're on the power, he opens his braking up to go deeper, because effectively on the outside, all that really happens is your apex gets a little deeper. You still have the track space, but as soon as you get into those hard braking points, those tight corners, it's not as easy to hold the outside. You're starting to get 3 wide by that point, and it's never going to work. There's always going to be drama. And guys like Max Benneker get up to 7th. Graham Carroll's gone down the order. He's back to 15th. And even poor Mac Backham, who had a fantastic start, he locked a break in turn 1. He's already back to 14th just due to these dramas. You've really got to stay out of it if you want a chance.
Yeah, Josh Rogers then 5th place. He's moving forward. He's ahead of De Jong then, so he managed to get ahead of De Jong this lap. He's got Dane Warren in front of him, so the 2 Australians together then out there on track, 4th and 5th place around the right-hander at turn number 12 into 13. You've really got to get the car slowed down now for the chicane, 14 and 15, and then the final corner, sweeping corner. It's going to be pretty much full throttle for these cars, a little bit of feathering just to make sure you make it around that corner, and then down towards turn number 1. Look at Setsource already going defensive. He's trying to break the slipstream. That's not going to work for him though. Charlie Collins, will he dive out from behind Setsource? No, he doesn't. He stays behind for the time being, but you can see here, Matt, already that this defensive driver from Setsource is actually dropping them off of Sebastian Job.
Yeah, and you're seeing a little bit of that bent bodywork that we saw in Max Benneker's car in qualifying as well for Setsource. So whether that was a curb or otherwise, we'll see if it affects him. Certainly, Max Benneker ended up quite deep in the order in qualifying, very late on the brakes, but again, nice wide open corner. As long as you flow it in, you get on the power, you'll be fine on the exit. Charlie Collins doing everything early, and again, this is the mental aspect, and Graham Carroll confirmed this last week with Diego Pinto behind him. When you've got a rookie in the championship, okay, sure, you've done your scouting, you've seen these guys in other races, in other series perhaps, but it's new to the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup. You don't necessarily know their characteristics, and Charlie Collins being this aggressive right now, Sindre Setsource is not going to be as confident as he would if someone he's familiar with behind him. So yeah, Collins is in the advantage right now. He just needs to make sure he puts it together this time, doesn't cause himself to get off, I guess, line as he did in Interlagos. Looking back on it, this is some of the drama. Jeremy Bootloop this time 3 wide. Ooh, it's Kevin Ellis Jr. I think this is where it led to his bigger dramas. He lost it on his own there, I'm afraid.
Yeah, Kevin. Oh, and then it just gets collected, and then there's more. There's Jeff Giassi getting turned around, another one of the VRS cars, and just and that's it. And that's with Big Pack Racing. You've got 40 cars out there on track. That concertina just ripples all the way down the field.
And if you're the guy that's right behind, you can see it, you can get around it, but the more tire smoke, the more cars suddenly jumping out of the way. You're 5 or 6 cars back. You're not seeing through that many obstacles. So yeah, the deeper you get, the harder it is to avoid those incidents.
Down towards turn 1, Setsource going defensive here. This could come back to bite him. Collins around the outside, gone a little bit deep, locks up the tyre, and that's going to allow Dane Warren to come in and try and fight. Mitchell de Jong's trying to make a move on Josh Rogers, so one little mistake, again, that concertina effect, it ripples down the line, and when you're in a close battle like this, the guy at the back has to react and react the most there. Max Benneker, Thomas Tesla, and now Alejandro Sanchez has joined the back of this queue. So this is second down to 9th place here, and Benneker looking around the outside of Mitchell de Jong. That's not going to work there, and that's going to open up the door for Thomas Tesla as well. No move made for the time being. They're staying as they are through the chicane at 7 and 8, but a little bit of a heart-in-mouth moment there that started all the way back at turn number 1 for Charlie Collins.
Yeah, it just carries on the whole time. He's managed to get back in the line, though, back in the tow. And remember, we were 9 laps in our sprint race. We're 18 in the feature. Those little puffs of smoke, those little lockups, they're going to be so much more punishing at the end as Josh Rogers. Smooth, calm, collected as always. He'll slip it up the inside and get one more position, grabs 4th place on track. But again, those little lockups this time, you're not going to be able to just hold it together and go for broke at the end. You've really got to keep this car alive for the end of the race.
As through the chicane once again, Job is about 1.8, 1.9 seconds ahead of this battle for second place. And I feel right now that Setsos is a little bit of a cork in the bottle. We'll look back as Connery, you've got some news for us.
Yeah, a lot of complaints in the mid-pack for some of the driving standards that were on display. Some drivers getting frustrated with what has been happening. Jack Sedgwick saying that people have been racing like it's the last lap. So a lot of unhappy and disgruntled drivers here in around the P20.
Thank you very much, Colin. Thank you very much, Connery. Don't know where I got Colin from. It's Charlie Collins in second place that's confused me because that has actually changed position. Setsos has not been able to hold off Charlie, so Collins up into second now. Can Setsos try and make a comeback here, or will Charlie Collins be able to drive away from him? And look at that, Rogers straight away, decisive move to the inside here, Matt. But Setsos is fighting this one out.
And this is where now the man in power is actually Dwayne Warren, because if Dane sits back and, okay, they've decided to be mature and responsible about it. If they had tried to battle this all the way through the S's, you'd lose all the momentum even if you didn't have contact, and he could capitalize. He still might get a run for Setsos into turn 10, but I think this is just they've got to calm it down a little bit. It's one thing to complain about the driver standards, but even from a tire perspective, and I'm going to harp on about it, you're going to get sick of me hearing it, but you've got to let this rhythm just subside slightly. Let those tires cool. That's not going to help Max Benetke as he gets all out of sorts in the background. He was making good progress as well. He was someone I was just about to mention, saying, sitting there, letting them do the battling in front, but he gets caught out this time.
Yeah, he got into the side of Mitchell de Jong. He half lost the back end of the car, and that's allowed Tetela Sanchez to go through. Here's Setsos then, the onboard. You get to see him in his sim rig. He's working hard, keeping his focus. He'll be checking everything. He'll have an engineer in his ear right now, but those 2 cars at the front, the 93 and the 92 of Collins and Rogers, just seem to have that little edge at this moment in time. But still, we've only had about 6, well, we're on to lap 6 of this race, so plenty still to happen in this one here.
Yeah, a couple of drivers trying to work back through. Boot Loop was pushed back out a few times. He's in 12th, but he's closing in the gap, and it's a train from where we are on board right now with Max Benetke all the way back to that position. So definitely some opportunities to be made. We're only on lap 6, a third of the race done. As Max, again, I'm going to say it, they just need to calm it down. We see more locking up front. In fact, side by side, I think it's Charlie Collins again. This time, Sindre Setsos forced out wide. Second lap in a row, he's going to have to concede position on the outside of the S's.
Yeah, you can see that further up the field. Max Benetke, though, he's not concentrating on that. He's concentrating on the back of Alejandro Sanchez's car, and he'll be a tougher prospect to move forward and move past there. But you're right there, Dane Warren moving himself up into 4th place now. So it is the British driver, Sebastian Job, 1st place. Charlie Collins again, another Brit, in 2nd place. And the 2 Australians, Josh Rogers and Dane Warren, 3rd and 4th place. And then look at this queue here. Again, I just feel that Setsos doesn't quite have the long run pace here. He's done a good job though so far of not just being freight trained past.
Yeah, so far so good. Not so good for a few drivers. A lot of people were casualties early on in race number 1. It's no different now in the feature race. Zach Campbell, unfortunately, again, was caught up in that. Ricardo Castroleta, another one, Alexander Walters. But Kevin Ellis Jr., perhaps the biggest name in that, is down and out in this one. Obviously, we saw the onboard got spun of his own volition in turn 10, and then obviously got collected on the way on the outside. Poor rejoin at that point afterwards, which we didn't quite catch on the replay, but his day done. So not a good follow-up to the man who won the feature in the opening rounds.
Yep, around turn number 3 then. We're at that stage of the race where really they need to be just thinking about their tyres. Let's see how they cope with it. But let's see what it's like to be racing around here. We'll give you a little bit of the sights and sounds of Barcelona. If you're liking what you're seeing here and hearing, then why don't you get yourself signed up and join the iRacing community? Just go on to iRacing.com for further details of how to sign up and start your iRacing career. It's a tremendous service. I personally race on it myself, so yes, do go and check it out. iRacing.com. Get yourself a membership to join this fantastic racing, and we are seeing some fantastic racing here, Matt. Josh Rogers made it up into second place whilst we were on those on boards.
And I was about to say, fantastic racing. We might get a race at the front now because he's also just gone purple. He's done the fastest lap of the race. Now the gap is 2.5 to Sebastian Job. How much has Job left in it? How much has he been pushing? There's been a lot of battling behind, so presumably he's had some space and time to let his tires settle and be ready for this. But Josh Rogers, the man with 18 poles, going against the winningest driver in the series with 10 wins, Sebastian Job. This is exactly what you want to see.
Absolutely. Those as we head on down towards turn number 1. One of those drivers who started further up your field that's had a bit of a bad start to the race, to this feature race, is Martin Krunker. He's way down your field now, down in 28th. He's certainly not had a good day. Also, look at this then. David Williams, Jeremy Bootloop, Diogo Pinto, and Matt Backham. There's Graham Carroll on the back of this queue as well. So a queue of cars battling out for 12th down.
Yeah, and it's going to be a battle all the way. It's good to see it has, I think, stabilized a little bit, because it was, I mean, we heard what Connery had to say. A lot of the drivers further down in the field saying it was racing like it was the last lap. But yeah, getting a little more normal out there now. Charlie Collins in the beautifully liveried Lego car, number 16. He had a great start position, but a horrible entry to turn 1. He was the one that went well wide and had to get the slowdown penalty. Fell, I think, to 16th place, but he's making it back up now, even with a little bit of contact, as Beneke is trying to get up behind Sanchez. This is a battle of two protagonists in the series, but it's not that easy because they've got company on the outside as well, and forced out wide. In fact, collecting both, and Beneke is going to get both positions.
Yeah, Max Beneke Bennica, the master of... Oh, I think that might be some damage there as well for Thomas Tetela, just getting caught together with Alejandro Sanchez on the exit of turn number 10. It's always a tricky one, is that you've got to leave space, and unfortunately I think that was Tetela just getting caught up there, ending off. But ever the opportunist, Max Bennica now behind Mitchell de Jong once again. He's back to where he was about 4 laps ago when he made that little bit of a mistake, but Bennica now, he's got his sights set. He wants a top 6 minimum here today after such a poor qualifying for the sprint race. But through turns 1, 2 and 3, hold your line, feather your throttle through this right-hander. It then opens up, let the car run out wide, try not to scrub the tyres because that will cause serious issues. On board then with Max, sheer focus and determination on his face there. He's trying to put it hard and trying to catch up now to that battle. Setsos and de Jong, they're battling out in front now, Matt. So all of a sudden Setsos falling down, and it's possibly 6th place on the cards.
Yeah, and I corrected myself. I said Matt Backham in that Lego car, but yeah, he's in a bit of a battle. I want to point out a driver who's perhaps made the most improvement over his debut for his new team Redline in this championship. Patrick Holzman sitting in 9th right now. That is a massive turnaround for someone who did not look so good out in Brazil.
As we'll get ourselves a Vodafone replay, and this is Sanchez. So this is that battle through turn number 9. They were side by side, and Max Bennica just waiting patiently. Well, I say patiently, he was trying to stick his nose down the middle of them there, but this is down into turn number 10 on the brakes. It's a tricky corner. You want to get in the power nice and early. The car's still got the overlap there. You really need to give the space.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yes, you're the car ahead, but he's not just going to vanish. He can't just vanish, and it's, you've got to respect the racing room. So, yeah, unfortunately, Sanchez comes over a bit tight. It costs both them position. Max Bennica, the benefactor of that, and he's on the move now as well because he's caught the pack in front, and this is quite a draft train. We're 8 to go. I mean, we're just past the halfway mark. There's lots of action still in this race.
Well, that's because de Jong has made his way past Setsos here, and those two battling has brought them back towards Max Bennica. And look at the different lines being taken there. So I wonder if you've got some that have used their tyres more than others. Into turn number 4, Bennica to the inside as Connery, you got news from the pit lane.
Yep, you're exactly right, Paul. It's exactly what I was going to say. Sindre Setsos complaining over the radio that his tyres are 100% gone. So that's why he's sliding back through the field. He lost the position to Mitchell de Jong in the last lap, lost the position to Bennica on this lap, and I think it's the only direction he's going in is backwards, unfortunately.
Thank you very much, Connery. But Matt, I mean, if your tyres are 100% gone by the halfway point of the race, I mean, your future's backwards, unfortunately.
Yeah, and he was running in 2nd at one point in time, Sindre Setsos, so not at all where he was hoping to be. He's been having to defend so much, and I mentioned it, the ambient temperature, the track temperature being so much less than in Interlagos, we were going to see some setup changes. There's definitely some different wing settings in these guys among teams, among drivers, even within teams that would have worked together and practiced together. There's a long straightaway. You'd think you'd want less aero for the draft, but you've got such high-speed corners that adding that little bit of aero might just relax those tires in a race. So you've got different approaches between those setups. That gap at the front, Paul, has not really changed since Rogers got through.
Yeah, so I think it was Sebastian. I mean, we'll just get the lap times update as they come across the line there. I mean, last laps are 48.513 for Job, 48.588 for Rogers. So I mean, there's 0.07 of a second between them lap time wise. Rogers is dragging Charlie Collins and Dane Warren along with him as well, though. He's got that backup behind him. They need to start pushing forward and trying to get to Job. But right now, here, I would say, Matt, that Job is maybe just managing how things are at the front of the field.
Yeah, and that has to do with a couple of things. Sebastian's been out front the whole time. He can control his own pace. There was a bit of battle behind. We mentioned Sindre Setsos, who looks like he's on the attack, perhaps, trying to get something back this time. Having to be so aggressive, Rogers, that Engel made it look like he kind of lost the rear as he bumped over the curb, and curbs have not been his friend this season, if you think back a week ago. But the fact that Josh Rogers had to go through the field, and there's been so much squabbling and braking and going wide and battling for position,
you'd think that Sebastian's actually, despite being in the front and doing the pace, he's been able to relax the most. So yeah, longevity should be on his side, you would expect.
Charlie Collins there, 3rd place. We're seeing that view, and there he is then, the youngster from the UK. And he's certainly giving a good showing here. Of course, one of your rookies this season is Charlie Collins. Had a really good opening to the qualification series that got himself secured for this championship. Into the left and then the right. Get on the power, and he could just follow in the wheel steps of Josh in front. Josh just carries that little bit more pace out of that final corner, and I think it's just those little things here and there, those little tents, Matt, that really show why Josh Rogers is a former champion in the series.
Well, and it's the 2 former champions of the 2 opening seasons that are leading the way. It's remarkable to me that we can get this many drivers that are so close. I mean, incredibly close. I'm pretty sure in the space of a car length you could fit the whole grid based on the qualifying times, and yet those 2 seem to prevail so often, even more so with Josh in qualifying over the 1 lap. So yeah, remarkable to see them up front, and just speaks volumes about their skill. But Charlie Collins, okay, sure, he may have lost the rear and lost position in Interlagos, but this guy is definitely, I think, one to watch for the future. He looks very, very, very sharp, and as a rookie, very composed on the track right now.
Yeah, as you mentioned, just that little issue that happened at Interlagos cost him a podium position, but now...
Just quick, I just want, the last few times we've seen these side shots in Sector 2 of Josh Rogers, that back end is starting to hang out a little more and more. So I'm starting to wonder, and he mentioned it in the interview, the rear tire degradation is extremely high.
Well, yeah, and plus, of course, having to battle his way from 8th place at the start of the race, that'll have put extra forces and extra wear into those tyres. 6 to go. We're about to reach 5 to go when they reach the line. So these drivers now, this is where business will pick up. This is where, as we go to the triple box here, we've got the battle for 2nd place, top left. We've got the battle for 14th, which is actually involving Pinto and Back. So Backham trying to recover here in this this feature race. And then 24th, if you look at that queue of 5 cars then, that's led by Jack Sedgwick with Jeff Giassi, Alexander Tiber, Pekka Toivonen and Salva Talens then. So that they're all finding their way through that final corner. Oh, that car at the front of that queue in 24th getting a little loose out of the last corner, but keeping it going. So we've got battling all the way through the field here, Matt, and this is what you get with this championship.
Oh, yeah, I love it. I mean, I said it last week, I'll say it again. This is probably the most, well, I would say is the most competitive sim racing league that we have on the planet. One make series, real life, these cars are drivers' cars. This is where you cut your teeth if you're going to race in Le Mans, if you're going to race any WEC, IMSA, anywhere at all really in a GT car. Porsche Cup is the place to start, and it's no surprise to me that when you get this much talent in a Cup car in iRacing that you get this kind of racing. So really good to watch. This bottom left is catching my eye out of these 3 battles right now. We're seeing Mac Backham having to be super aggressive on Diego Pinto, who's already, after just 1 round in the championship as a rookie, made a name for himself for being very aggressive in his own right. So that could be an interesting one to keep an eye on.
Of course, being aggressive is one thing, but that can also backfire on you as well as we come back to that battle for 2nd place. And the thing is here, Matt, is that Sebastian Job is just managing that gap. There's not a lot of difference between him and Joshua Rogers in 3rd place. I just think that Sebastian right now is just managing his tyres, working to a number, so that then when it comes towards the last, say, 3 laps or so, he can really just start pushing on a bit and try and pull away.
Yeah, I think this is perfect scenario for Sebastian. He got in the front, had pole, got to the front and managed to get a gap based on the battles behind him, and that has allowed him to, like I say, control the pace, relax the car, and find a rhythm, which is super important. And
oh dear,
we've got a battle back behind.
Yeah, Pinto has been involved in an incident, so there's now his teammate of La Fuente going side by side. They've got Brian Lockwood involved there with also Christopher Dan Beats, so that's a battle further down. That's 16th, 17th, 18th and 19th all together there through turn number 3, but Pinto got helped around apparently, and that meant that he has dropped down. But look at this, Alejandro Sanchez, 7th place here, putting the pressure on Mitchell de Jong, and crucially, Max Benneker has made his way past into 5th place here, Matt.
Yeah, he's proving to be incredibly good at getting through in these situations. Again, last week 22nd to 13th to 2nd in the feature. This week, I think it was 16th or 17th on the grid, managed to get up to 10th place in the opening race, and now he's sitting in 5th, so making the most of his races, absolutely. So very good points haul for him. Rogers first, now sitting 2nd. That's going to be fantastic. Sebastian had the technical difficulties. I mean, this is starting to shape up. We're starting to see sort of who's going to be consistent, but Sanchez needs to recover after last week, and he's trying to do his best. Mitchell de Jong has fallen off the pace a little bit in this race because very good opener, incredible last weekend, not quite holding with the lead group this time around.
As they head on through the final corner, I don't know if you've noticed, but that gap has just started increasing between Job and Rogers, only by about 1/10 of a second, but Rogers just seems to be falling off the pace, and if anything, Charlie Collins has got closer to the Australian of Josh Rogers, so all of a sudden Josh Rogers is going to have to start looking behind him rather than looking forward here.
Tough to do. He wants so badly to be battling, but he needs to think championship picture. He's absolutely one that will be in it, and the man in front of him is going to be someone he has to beat, and in order to do that, you need to capitalize on every point. It's probably not likely he catches him at this point, so just hold your own, hold your ground. Charlie Collins is a rookie. He's going to want to prove himself, but the one thing that works toward the favor of Rogers is he made a mistake last week when trying to attack late, and maybe that'll have him think twice. He can just settle in and make sure he gives himself a bit of a buffer. Top 20, it's worth noting, requalify for next year's championship. Now, I kind of predict these guys won't have that issue at the front of the field, but you still need to get the points, and it scores to 25th in the feature race. So yeah, it's better to be get those points out of the way early in the championship, and then you can be a little bit more risky later on if you're not necessarily thinking championship picture, but more just personal result.
One driver who's been having a good run of it so far in this particular event, Patrick Holtzman. He is, there's tyre smoke ahead, there's a car off, that's Max Benneker. So Holtzman finds himself even better off, up into 9th place. We saw him on board, but Benneker, well, obviously something's happened between him, between him, de Jong and Sanchez. We'll have to try and get a replay of that, but yeah, Benneker, the one who's really come off worst out of all that.
Yeah, exactly. We jump from one Red Bull man to another. We talk about highs and now the lows. You're absolutely right. Holtzman didn't score points in the first weekend, but this week looking very good in his position. Unfortunately, his teammate back to 10th place after that. And again, aggressive, but you'd have to assume Sanchez involved in it because Set Sauce is made up too. The man who has no tires left is holding on somehow. How much damage, how much tire wear, because Jeremy Bootlu's now on the boot lid of Benneker. I say boot lid, actually, the engine's in the back, so perhaps the bonnet cover in this case, but absolutely drama. Max has to be very careful at this point. 2 to go. He just needs to bring it home.
So here we go then, as we look at Benneker then, he looks to be struggling, he's not really recovering. Here's the Vodafone replay then, and this is down into 10, so this is Sanchez and de Jong. Sanchez is making a move down the inside, late break, and he's just all locked up there. Alejandro, he's just got caught out, braked a little bit too late, and there's nothing you could do at that point.
I don't even think that's caught out. I think that's just a little too ambitious. That's a dive if I've ever seen one, and yeah, the innocent victim in this and the one who's gone further down as a result is Max Benneker. So you can see the disappointment in his face, but he'll have to just live with it at this point. I'm sure they have a penalty point system, so even if there's not a point applied in the actual race itself, the drivers accumulate points for the season, and I'm sure that'll be one that's looked at. As we look back to the front, Rogers a slight buffer with 2 to go over Collins, but the man who wants to get by them all, who had a bit of a heartbreak in the first round and wanted to recover, has so far, Dane Warren.
Well, we're going to be starting the final lap of the race. Sebastian Job in the lead of this one by 2.5 seconds. He has been caught just slightly on this lap by Josh Rogers. Charlie Collins in third place, the rookie having a good run here in third, but he's under pressure from Dane Warren behind. Warren looking a little bit squirrely under the brakes there into turn number one, but keeping in line for the time being. Mitchell de Jong, fifth place ahead of Sindre Setzels, who, as you say, lost all of his tyres by halfway through and yet still finds himself in sixth, but he's having to do a defensive drive from Alejandro Sanchez. Thomas Tesla, eighth ahead of Patrick Holtzman, and Max Benneker down into 10th place. But it's this battle here that's ongoing, and it's, I was about to say it's heating up, but it's not. They're keeping in line.
Well, it could be a rookie podium for Collins. Just to put really quickly a perspective on this, think back to the first race. Sebastian gets the elbows out, gets that 8th place, reverse grid pole. The man who is so close, Max Benneker, also had a great race here, but taken out because he's in the wars. That difference is everything. It could just as easily be Max at the front of the field right now.
Definitely, yeah, that absolutely is spot on with that. Just one little change of fate, and it could have been Max at the front. But there's the man at the front, the man with the number 1 on the door, the Red Bull Racing esports driver from East Grinstead, Sebastian Job, through turn 12 into 13. Just hit your brake markers right. Do everything that you've been doing throughout the 18 laps of this race. Up over the curb, onto the power, feather it through the final corner, and Sebastian Job is going to win the feature race here in the Porsche Tag Heuer Supercup by iRacing. The sense of relief there from Sebastian on his face. Across the line, it's going to be Setzels at the front of that queue for 6th place, ahead of Sanchez, Tattler, Holtzman and Benneker. Further down, there's a dive from Salvatore on Jack Sedgwick, and down the inside. Unbelievable. Talk about ever the opportunist. Well, that was Jeff Giassi is in there. The 119 is Pekka Toivonen, who gets involved as well. So that was all over 27th. There wasn't any points at stake there as well. Here's a driver who'll be disappointed. Masikai Desoya down in 31st for him. But what a drive for the Englishman and the reigning champion. Sebastian Job then led from the front and takes the win here in the feature race at Barcelona. Joshua Rogers second with Charlie Collins in third. Dane Warren put the pressure on and he was in fourth. Mitchell de Jong 5th place in the end then, trying his best to move forward, but that was the best that he could get there. 6th place then. Great defensive drive from Sindre Setzels to finish in 6th ahead of, look at that, Alejandro Sanchez, Thomas Tetzler, Patrick Holtzman, all together there. Max Benneker, though, he'll be disappointed with that. He was in that 5th place just a few laps before the end of the race. Jeremy Bootslip, 11th ahead of David Williams, 12th. Graham Carroll, 13th. Not a good day at the office for him with Matt Backham in 14th place. Actually, Ramstein, another one of your rookies, doing not a bad job in 15th ahead of Daniel Lafuente, Brian Lockwood, Christopher Dan Beats, Diogo Pinto and Ayachan Guven rounding out the 20. The final scorers in this race, by the way, Tommy Erstgaard, Thibaut Casabon, Marina Sarika, Alexander Tiba and Jeff Giassi was the last of the point scorers in this race, but only 31 finished that race on the lead lap there. But as we head on then into the Buzz post-race show, what a race it's been. It's been full of drama, Matt, and it's been still really exciting stuff out there today.
Very exciting stuff, and a great drive from Sebastian. Again, didn't have the greatest qualifying. This time was even further down on the grid, 16th or so, and made the most of it, and most of the work done in the first race, so well done to him. But great recoveries from the first weekend by Patrick Holtzman, who I think put a great foot forward in his new stable and comes home with a good collection of points on his regard. Charlie Collins makes amends for the mistake last week, and you know what? I forget being just a rookie. I think that guy's going to be a force to be reckoned with in this championship throughout. And then on the other end of it, Kevin Ellis Jr. came in as the championship leader, which I know is a bold thing to say after just one round, but came in nonetheless as the leader and goes home with his tail between his legs this time around, Paul, which is not at all what he would have been hoping for.
Yeah, him and his teammate Zach Campbell getting caught up on lap 1. But now with your race winner then, Matt, take it away.
Yeah, Sebastian Job, the winningest driver in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup, manages to win your 11th win, and this gets the title hopes back on track after what was pretty disappointing in Interlagos.
Yeah, hi guys. Yeah, I'm a bit pissed off still, unfortunately, about qualifying. But the race pace was good, so I can be happy about that. But yeah, not to go into it too much, but changes have to be made about qualifying. This is quite crazy that I think I qualified 15th and had to fight up to 8th, and then I get the reverse pole. Is not good for the series.
Well, let's talk about the battle up to 8th though, Sebastian, because that was where I think the hard work was done. You had a pretty easy time of it in the feature. Everyone behind you kind of tripped over themselves for a bit, gave you a gap. Tire management easy, therefore. But the first race, that's about as aggressive as I've ever seen you drive.
Yeah, I have to be honest. The first lap of the first race, I was really happy with that. It's one of the best opening sequences to a race that I've had, and the pace was really good. So it was kind of just picking them off one by one. I made a mistake on the last lap with the last overtake, which I'm not too proud of. But other than that, it was a good race for me. I was really happy to fight up, I think, like 8 places gained. So
yeah, very well. Is this a little bit of scruff I see on you? Is this like Bottas 2.0? Is this you taking over this year?
You can notice that? Oh,
I can. I'm impressed.
This has been going for a couple months. This is not a good. This is not a good effort.
It's the COVID look. Well, hey, look,
exactly.
Good job getting things back on track. A feature win is perfect in Barcelona. So Sebastian Job obviously makes amends for the qualifying issues, but the man who again battled through the pack. We talked to you a little bit earlier on with a win and now a second place. It's pretty good points total, I think, for the weekend.
Yeah, I haven't done the maths, but no, I mean, that was awesome. Coming through the field, turn 1 was always going to be scary. This circuit, it's a bit of a bottleneck sometimes, and especially with the curbs and stuff, you kind of have to be really, really cautious and kind of pick and choose your line well, because ultimately, there's so many opportunities here where you can go inside or outside, and picking the right one can be the difference between, scoring some good points or ending up facing the wrong way, looking at the rest of the field. So, all in all, happy with that. Sebi deserved that win in the feature. He had the speed. After I got in front of Charlie, basically I was only really gaining a couple hundredths a lap, and it was kind of almost like a Donington-esque moment again from last year, where we're just kind of trading laps, lap after lap. So I kind of tried to put more of my focus into saving the tire so I could battle with Charlie and Dane towards the end. I think ultimately that was my battle in that race. My battle wasn't with Seb. So I just tried to kind of play this one a little bit smarter, and happy with the way I've driven today. And I think we've learned a little bit after what happened in round 1, and hopefully we can take this momentum forward.
How hard was that? Because that was one of the things we noticed, that Seb kind of got the free gap at the start, tire management. Did you have much left after you got to second, or were you kind of just battling at that point to hold position?
I had a little bit, but ultimately I felt probably already on lap 4 or so that the rears were starting to go for me. Whenever you're battling, or in general, whether you're going side by side with someone or you're trying to brake as late and deep as you can, it puts so much load on the rear tire that ultimately you're kind of left scratching your head as to where the group's gone. I think, I definitely had a little bit in the tank, but like I say, I think after a couple of laps of kind of noticing the gap and the difference in our lap times, it wasn't worth pushing, risking having completely no tire at the end for if I had to battle Charlie or Dane.
Sure.
I think. Yeah. Sorry.
No, I was just agreeing totally. I think you made the right choice, because you certainly kept the gap composed, and Charlie was eager, I think, behind you.
Yeah, they were pushing hard, and I think that the draft train as well. Thankfully, I was able to, I was quite strong in the last sector, so I was able to kind of have just enough gap to be clear into turn 1. I think that was kind of the key there. But no, all in all, awesome job from the team. Overall, we put a lot of effort in this one as well. Back-to-back rounds, it's always difficult, but we put in as much as we could in the time that we had, and I think we can be happy with this as a team result.
Yeah, well done. And speaking of team and stablemates, move the number up from 92 to 93, and Charlie Collins gets third on the podium as a rookie, and was a remarkable race, I think, from him all the way through. Paul, is he proved that he can capitalize on the situation. Obviously, last week at Interlagos, Charlie, you were 6th in the sprint race, which is a great debut for you in the series. But then the final, you got a little eager, lost the rear, and ultimately fell to 30th. Didn't score in that final in the feature race. But this time around, pretty sterling and pretty solid drive, I think, to be on the podium.
Yeah, hi guys. I cannot tell you how that feels after last week's race. You know, we were running 3rd last week, and I know it didn't show on the broadcast, but I had a little tap in the rear, which sent me around. So to get a 3rd this week just feels so good.
Are you? I guess, is this what you expected in your rookie season, to be able to battle at the front with these guys as much as you have been?
Oh no, not at all. You know, these guys, Dane, Josh, Mitchell, Seb, you know, they're so quick. So, you know, for me to come 3rd is just a big surprise for me. And yeah, you know, you can see at the end, Josh was really quick. You know, he's pulling away from me a little bit in draft.
From working with guys like Josh, obviously being on the same team and now having 2 races under the belt, what's been the biggest takeaway that you've had to learn to maybe, or maybe even still need to learn to be ultra competitive at this series?
I think it showed in this race quite badly, but kind of managing my tyres at the last gap of maybe 8 laps, I was just really struggling with the rear in the last sector. I think, you know, I need to manage them a little bit better, be a little bit more smart with my pace sometimes. But yeah, you know, came 3rd, so I can't really complain.
Perfect. Well, I think that's a great recovery from what happened in Interlagos and an outright phenomenal result. So congratulations on your first podium in the series.
Thanks, guys.
Well, Paul, I think that sums it up very well. I mean, obviously, tires was the answer, but you can see what the rookies are saying. The aggressive doesn't always pay off. This circuit we go to next week, I think, is going to be incredibly hard on tires because a lot of the braking points are linked, and therefore you're not in a straight line. It's going to be very technical. I think perhaps the most technical braking of the season.
And it's also really difficult to overtake there as well. So definitely these drivers are going to find themselves tricky. But yeah, make sure you join us January the 30th. So we've got a week off, and then we're right back to it for the 3rd round of the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup. But well, final thoughts then, Matt. It was chaotic at times, but in the end, your 2 champions getting the 2 wins today.
And that's the incredible part for me. I mean, you've got such talent in this series, and yet those 2 guys continue to be so impressive. It just goes to show it's more than just outright pace. It's more than race pace. It's more than managing the tires. It's all of it together, and those guys just do so well. And look, Benecca was close today, very close. Obviously needs to solve qualifying issues. A couple of guys with some heartbreak need to stay out of the wars, but yeah, very, very good race. And we're starting to see now who the protagonists are for the season. It's going to be a battle the whole time.
Well, the hashtag is never not racing, and that's exactly what you get here. 2 weeks time, make sure you join us for the 3rd round of the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing. But from everybody here, myself, Paul Smith, Matt Trivett, also Conor Maddock as well, and everyone behind the scenes at iRacing, our pit reporters, our runners, our cameramen, graphics, sound. Thank you everybody for taking part in this and bringing us an excellent broadcast as always. But next time, 2 weeks, we'll be at Imola. Until then, from myself, it's goodbye.